When I was growing up, Diesel, the Heisman Trophy, I looked forward to the announcement every single year. I had great anticipation as I've been a sports fan my entire life. I always looked forward to the first or second weekend in December when the Heisman Trophy would be announced. However, here I am on December the 10th, 2024. And to be quite frank, I don't have the same anticipation. I don't have the same excitement of the winner or the announcement, rather, of the Heisman Trophy winner. And I don't know if that's because of the new landscape of college football. I don't know if that's because of what the Heisman Trophy winner has become. But regardless of the Heisman Trophy commercials, which are absolutely fantastic with the Heisman House and Tim Tebow and all of the guys, I don't find myself as excited about the year in, year out anticipation of who's going to be the Heisman Trophy. Please tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I wouldn't call you a negative Nancy, because we are in a society where people talk about everything like it sucks. Like nothing can be great anymore. It sucks, right? And it always sucks. If you're not first place, you suck. Second place,
Ricky Bobby,
suck.
yeah, he would
Third
agree.
place, suck. The Heisman Trophy has certainly lost some of its luster, and that's because of what the Heisman Trophy has done to itself. The Heisman Trophy has turned itself into the best quarterback on a team that is in the college football playoff award. And that's not what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be about the most valuable player on their team, the best individual player in college football, the player without whom the team would fall apart and would be terrible.
Yeah.
So number one, you have to be on a good team. Otherwise, nobody's getting nobody from 6-6 Akron. No disrespect to Akron, because I don't know what their record was.
But
nobody from a 6-6 Akron is being considered for the Heisman, even if they are having a great year by their standards. If everybody else around them sucks, guess what? You're not getting into the Heisman conversation. You got to be winning games. But if you've got a player who, without them, Cole, if they go down, their season is over. Their team is now losing 3-4 more games over the course of a season. That's who the trophy should go to. Unfortunately, it's turned strictly into a quarterback award.
So I'm asking this question because I truly don't know. Has it turning into or has it becoming a quarterback award, Diesel? Has that caused it to lose its luster? And I'm asking that because I'm trying to think in my head of why in 2024 it does seem as if it's lost a little bit of its luster. It doesn't seem the same. And I might be in agreement with you. I might not, but I haven't fully, Diesel, come to an analysis in my head or an opinion on why I think it has lost its luster. Tell me, though, in your mind, with it being a quarterback award, because I could argue, I could play devil's advocate that quarterback does move the meter. It does move the needle, if you will. It's a position that's highly regarded and highly valued. Why do you think that, in its own right, of being a quarterback award, has brought down the luster of the award? And I might agree with you.
Because I think it's just predictable. It's predictable. So you're going to look and say, okay, here's the 12 teams that are in the playoff this year, or 4 teams last year and years before that. Who are the quarterback on those 4 teams? It's probably going to one of those guys. In all likelihood, somebody who's not winning conference championships and is not going to the college football playoff. The voters are not going to consider that player is valuable enough and hasn't created a result. See, that's the problem. To them, it's about the result, where you are because of the play, not the individual play itself. You could look at Dylan Gabriel and say he's elite. You could look at Shadur Sanders and say he's elite. By the way, JD, who brought up the point there about Dylan Gabriel Shadur being upset that he wasn't a finalist after having better numbers than Dylan Gabriel. Well, guess what? Cade Klubnik has better numbers than Dylan Gabriel this year. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're a Heisman contender, right? So you can pick and choose your stats and say this guy is really great, or you can have a narrative in your mind that says this guy is really great, but there could be players that are better than them. That's why I love the fact that Travis Hunter, who's doing something we haven't seen on the football field in a long time, being not just elite at one position and decent at the other. I mean, he is a lockdown corner,
sure,
and he is an elite wide receiver. on a decent Colorado team, right? And a storyline that Colorado has come back up in a major way over the past 2 seasons compared to where they were. Ashton Jeanty, without him, Boise State isn't even in the playoff conversation. How can you not say that he is the most valuable player to his team in college football?
Yeah, and I'm with you. I'll tell you what's interesting to me when you talk about the quarterback position, Diesel. I'm with you. It has turned into a quarterback award, but I could also argue that it has turned into an award for not the best player, but the best player on the best team. What I mean is, if you look at the NFL, let's take it to the NFL, and then we'll get to the phone lines in just a second. Diesel, do you know who leads the NFL right now in passing yards and touchdowns? It would be Joe Burrow, okay? The Cincinnati Bengals are not good this year. They got a win last night over my Cowboys, and I'm still wearing Cowboys gear. JD says I should be embarrassed, but a true fan, JD. I'm going to wear it regardless.
You're going to be wearing a Carolina Panther head on your forehead.
Yeah, you might be right about that.
Next Monday.
I want to take that bet back. Here's my point. Joe Burrow in the NFL is having an incredibly amazing season, Diesel. A historic season, okay? So if Joe Burrow's having a literal historic season with his touchdowns and yards, you should be able to look on the MVP odds list and see Joe Burrow, right? However, you can't. Josh Allen, minus 400. Saquon Barkley, plus 450. Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Sam Darnold, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, Jordan Love, and Baker Mayfield, all ahead of Joe Burrow, who has better stats than all of those quarterbacks. What I'm getting at here is whether it's the MVP award or the Heisman Trophy award, it is going to the best player on the best team. There might be a player in college football right now who has better numbers than Cam Ward or Travis Hunter, but they're not taking into account the spectacular players out there. We are looking at the best teams, all 4 of the teams that we're looking at. Dylan Gabriel's Oregon Ducks, Travis Hunter, Ashton Jeanty, and Cam Ward, they've all had good seasons. I don't think I disagree with you on the quarterback award problem. However, I do think that whether it's the Heisman Trophy or the MVP award in the NFL, we really look at the best team way too much. Let's broaden it, in my opinion, and actually see who's having the best season. I'm not saying go to Akron, to your point, but let's make sure we're doing due diligence here is all I'm saying.
Sure. In any given year, a quarterback probably is the best player in college football.
Probably 9 times out of 10.
This is one of those rare years, Cole, where a quarterback better not finish better than third. Better not finish better than third. I mean, in my mind, it ought to be Travis Hunter 1, Ashton Jeanty 2, and Dylan Gabriel, Cam Ward, whoever it is.
I agree with that.
3.
I agree.
And I don't really care who finishes 3, 4. It doesn't really matter, right? This is one of those situations where if you don't win, you do suck, right?
Yeah.
Being a finalist, it's like saying, oh, you got 19 Academy Award nominations, but you never actually won one.
Yeah.
Don't care. Raspberry. Without Ashton Jeanty, that team falls apart.
No doubt.
Travis Hunter, that team falls apart. Yeah, Shadur is a huge part of that, but Shadur by himself can't lead that team to what did they win? 8 games this year?
Yeah, I think so.
You can't win 8 games this year with just Shadur. You got to have Travis Hunter.
7-2. Sorry. No. 9-3. I was looking at
9-3.
conference. So they went 7-2 in conference. Diesel 9-3 overall. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Also want to hear from you on the text line. The stream is blowing up right now on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. You can text the show 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Cheesehead Corey says, has there ever been 2 Heisman Trophy nominees from the same team? It's a good question, Corey. We'll do some research, but let's go to Jersey Joe, who wants to weigh in on the renewal by Anderson of the Carolinas fan phone, 844-326-3663. What's up, Joe?
Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Good,
Joey.
Man. Hey, was the quarterback from Army ever into this conversation?
Ooh. You know what?
I haven't seen his name thrown around.
Bryson Daly. I know he was the AAC Offensive Player of the Year, Joe, but I don't think he was discussed for the Heisman.
Didn't he tie Ashton Jeanty for the most rushing touchdowns?
It's a good question. It's a good question.
You're asking us a bunch of stats here off the top of our head.
He had, let's see, I got it right here. He had 29 rushing touchdowns. Ashton Jeanty also had 29. So, yes, you're correct. He also had the same amount of rushing touchdowns.
Consideration for the award or not.
So, Joe, we lost you for a second, but that goes back to my point that I was just making. I 100% agree with you. And by the way, Army lost how many games? 1 to who? Notre Dame. And they're not even in the top 15, which doesn't make any sense to me.
That's absurd.
And to your point, Joe, you're exactly validating what I was saying, as we're not really giving this the full due diligence as to who the best player is.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe. Good call.
And to answer the question from earlier, Cole, have there ever been two teammates that were both finalists for the Heisman Trophy? Yes, there were. Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush.
Ooh, good one.
And then I'm blanking on their first names here, from Oklahoma, Peterson and White.
Quarterback.
I can see his face. Oklahoma. It feels
Adrian
weird.
Peterson, right?
It feels weird to search White quarterback.
Yeah,
Oklahoma.
search that on Google. No, it was Adrian Peterson.
Jason
White. So those were also two finalists. Oh, that's a pretty good stat. Shout out to Cheesehead Corey on that, asking that question. So the question, if you just tuned in, Cheesehead Corey on the text line, asked if there has ever been Heisman Trophy nominees from the same team. And you know what? I totally forgot about Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush. Like, that was a special season, and you're right, both of them were.
Well, you wouldn't be reminded of them unless you're watching the Big Ten game on Fox. It's the only time you ever see Matt Leinart anymore. Which I sent you a photo on, what was it, Thursday night, Friday night of last week, and it's the quarterback the running back that played at Alabama that's on the Fox game day.
Yeah,
and he looked miserable.
I did see. He looked
miserable being in Boise, Idaho.
Oh God,
cold.
Yeah, he did.
Frigid. He was wrapped up to his lips with
was it Ingram?
Mark Ingram. There you go.
Yeah,
with a scarf. He looked freezing cold. Did not want to be there.
So here are the 4 finalists. As we mentioned this yesterday, did not spend a lot of time on it. Dylan Gabriel, who has 3,558 yards, 28 touchdowns, 6 picks, and a QBR diesel of 86.5. Travis Hunter, 92 receptions, 1,152 yards, 14 touchdowns, 12.5 yards per reception. And then, to your point, plays a ton of defense as well. Ashton Jeanty of Boise State, 344 carries, 2,497 yards, 29 touchdowns, 7.3 yards per carry. And Cam Ward, 4,123 yards, 36 touchdowns, 7 picks, and an 88.0 QBR. Tolos, Diesel and I have gave our opinion. Who do you think in your mind you would cast your vote for if you had a vote? 71307. Start your text with the word fan. Also, you Tolos on the stream. Diesel, I'm in agreement with you. I'd go Travis Hunter 1. Did you say Ashton 2?
Yes. Yeah, Ashton Jeanty 2.
I think I'm with you there. He's had a special season.
Mm-hmm.
But man, Jersey Joe's right. Like the Daly kid from Army, how is he not even in the conversation?
Because he plays for a small school.
Army, I guess
he plays for a small program that's not the storyline that everybody's paying attention to.
And they're not they don't throw the ball a lot.
Right. That's true. And Cole, would you rather have a quarterback that has 33 touchdowns to 5 interceptions or 28 touchdowns to 6?
Probably the first, because it's more touchdowns, right?
Yeah, so you'd rather have Cade Klubnik as your quarterback, is what you're trying to say, as compared to Dylan Gabriel.
Oh, man. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Cade, so you're comparing Cade's numbers to Dylan Gabriel's numbers. That's interesting. JB on the YouTube stream says Hunter will win it, but I think I'd vote for Jeanty from Boise State. Who would you vote for, Tolos? Let us know. That's very interesting, Diesel.
Shadur Sanders has 2 more touchdowns than Cade, but he's also got 3 more interceptions and about 600 more yards passing.
Wow. That's interesting. You know, if it weren't for the injury to Quinn Ewers, or I guess him just having a up and down season at times, I don't want to say up and down because that's kind of disrespectful, but I would have told you were absolutely crazy at the beginning of the season, Diesel, if Quinn Ewers wasn't one of the 4 finalists. Cam Ward's very good quarterback for Miami, and I like Dylan Gabriel as well, but I did feel like Quinn Ewers would be there. I don't think he's had the year that we expected to. Obviously, injury plays a role in that as well.
Well, this season we've seen, I mean, every year, obviously there's plenty of deserving candidates, but it feels like this year we've got so much of a harder decision to narrow the field down to 4. I mean, you can only take 4 to New York for the award ceremony, but man, it feels like anybody inside the top 10 should feel honored to be there because they're all elite football players. And it's been an impressive season this year. We've had a lot of breakout storylines and breakout talent this year. I mean, you could certainly make a point for Shadur Sanders being on the list as well, and for being a finalist at the very least.
Texter says 71307 keyword fan. Hunter wins twice to make up for somehow not being a Thorpe Award finalist. Travesty, Hunter.
Do you remember mid-season we were bringing that up, and the fact that Travis Hunter was still like 7th or 8th?
Yes, I do.
It might even not even been in the top 10 of the Heisman odds at that time.
No, I do remember that. You brought it up. It was a segment we did about probably midway through the season, maybe early, maybe 5-6 weeks in, Diesel. And at the time, you're right, his numbers weren't. I don't even think he was a top, to your point, I don't even think he's a top 5 candidate in terms of the Vegas odds where they had him. But no, he catapulted himself into the top 4 in the Final 4, deservingly so in my mind. I do think he's deserving of it. You've seen Heisman winners in the past have his athletic ability, Diesel, but when's the last time you saw somebody, to your point earlier in the segment, have somebody or have that ability on both sides of the football? I'm looking back right now. You're talking about a ton of quarterbacks that got the MVP, right? I'm trying to find the last guy who was a threat offensively and defensively, and it's going to be a while before I can find someone all the way back in the 90s now. Did Charles Woodson play both ways, or am I mistaken there? Back at Michigan, I could be wrong there, but you don't see this much, is my point, right? You don't see guys who can go both ways, and I think that right there, Diesel, gives him 100% benefit of the doubt that the award's his.
Yeah, and this, honestly, in my mind, it should probably not even be that close with the final voting. I mean, Travis Hunter ought to win this thing by a mile. And then after that, it should be relatively tight because there's not a lot of votes left.
So Charles Woodson I just looked it up. He did play significant minutes on both offense and defense in the early 60s. So that's what you're talking about, Diesel. You're talking about history.
Is he the one that would essentially play receiver for one game and then DB for the next game?
I don't know.
But I seem to remember a story when we were looking up a while back, looking up the story of Travis Hunter. They would talk about some players that were playing both ways, that they would specialize in one thing and then kind of play the other one a little bit, but not nearly as much as playing equal snaps on both sides of the ball.
Jay Burwanger was also a two-way player, and he was the very first Heisman Trophy winner in 1935.
Burr what?
Burwanger.
Wanger?
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 Berwanger.
Oh, Burwanger.
Burwanger.
Wow.
I don't know, Jay. Jay Burwanger.
I only brought that up because I'm immature.
Well, it's okay. I just, I usually mispronounce 2 or 3 names per show, so it might be a mispronunciation. But again, that goes back to my point that Travis Hunter does deserve it. He's the only player. He's the 3rd player ever to play significant minutes on both sides of the ball, and I think Deion deserves a lot of credit for that. Bringing him with him to Colorado, I think he deserves a ton of credit.
And to do it at a major university in a big conference, also, Cole. When you mean if Travis Hunter wanted to stay in the FCS, for example, and do it for an FCS team, okay, you're just a better athlete than everybody else on the field. But no, he stayed with Deion, went to a big school, kept doing it at a big school in a tougher conference than what he was in. So he deserves a tremendous
let's be honest,
credit for that.
He could play in the SEC. He could play anywhere he wanted. Yeah. It's not like, he's only doing this because he's in Colorado. I mean, this kid's special.
Yeah.
And I think he'll be a really good NFL player. One more point, Diesel, before I shut up. Brett McMurphy tweeted this out just seconds ago. College Football Playoff Executive Director Rich Clark was asked if AI could be used in the future for selecting teams, and he says, he quotes, AI will never take over, but might be a tool the committee members might use in the near future. Didn't we talk about that a couple days ago? AI. I think we joked about it.
Scary, man. We don't have to use it for everything.
AI on the playoff committee.
Hey, Chat GPT, who should the 12-team playoff? But you know what? We're going to ask Chat GPT during the break.
Let's do it.
Who the 12 best teams and who are the most deserving? What are we doing here? Best or the most deserving?
I think you do best just to see if they get it wrong.
See if it spits it out. Okay. When we come back, Cole, let's put a little bow on the very first National Signing Day, early signing day. And, man, the portal is heating up. How many guys are they expecting to be in there? I'm going to tell you, it's more than a few. That's coming up next on the Fan Upstate. To answer the question from before, Cole, no, ChatGPT doesn't know who the 12 best teams are. So, I mean, they're just like the committee.
They're clueless.
Yeah. They're like,
they're fat.
We're going to need some more info.
They're lazy.
Yeah, something like that.
Come on.
At least this spit out the answer pretty quick. We didn't need an hour-long show.
I can't believe that
for 5 straight weeks.
I thought ChatGPT answered everything.
I mean, it answers the question, but it doesn't give you any real information.
What a useless piece
is Clemson a viable team this year? Clemson has been a regular playoff team in the past and might be a strong pick if they have a dominant season, particularly in a competitive ACC.
And that's what you say, ChatGPT?
That's ChatGPT.
I use the robot on Snapchat. I don't know if it would be any different or not, but that's pitiful.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. It's also pretty sad what other conferences were able to do, Cole, in national signing window. Number one, the early signing day, which is now National Signing Day. I don't give a rip. Like can we just call it National Signing Day and then the late signing day instead of early signing day? Because there's no such thing as early signing day. If you have a signing day where a majority of the players sign that day, that's signing day.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's just people still waiting to see what kind of offers they're going to get.
Diesel, not to get you off topic here, but my robot on Snapchat did answer it. I said, who should be the 12 teams in the playoff? Robot said, that's a tough one. I'd say Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, and Ohio State for sure. After that, maybe Texas, Oregon, and Washington. Then you have teams like Penn State, Florida State, and Clemson who can make a case. Who do you think should be in? At least mine gave me some freaking teams, but you're right. Michigan.
Yeah, see, that's the people don't realize AI is not like some machine thinking for itself. It just scans a million articles all at once and then spits out a conglomerated answer.
Yeah, it's dumb.
So signing day, number one, come and gone, Cole, the SEC, incredibly strong in National Signing Day. Part one, in the top 10, Cole, in recruiting, 7 SEC teams sit there inside the top 10. Florida, 11th. Texas has 19 4- and 5-star players. Alabama signed 19 as well. Georgia, 23. Oregon, 20. Ohio State, 22. Auburn sits there at number 11. Auburn is inside the top 10. I said that wrong. They have 17 4- and 5-star guys. You've been asking the question, why don't they just fire Hugh Freeze? That's why, because he's got 17 4- and 5-star guys coming in. He only has one 5-star. He's got 16 4-star guys, which is still pretty good.
It's good,
but it's not going to win you more than about 8 games in the SEC.
But is this 2025 season, regardless of the recruiting, is this upcoming season not make or break?
This will be his 3rd season?
That's
that right? I mean, in the SEC, yeah. I mean, anywhere else, you'd probably get 4. You probably get another one. But man, that is the shortest leash ever.
It is.
3
it's
years
Auburn,
in the SEC. When you're recruiting inside the top 10, you better get it done. Auburn is a fun case study. You know, we talk about a lot of fan bases being twitchy, being like really quick on the trigger, you know, really quick to throw the hook out there and pull somebody off stage. Auburn is right there. I mean, they've gone through, how many coaches have they gone through?
7
since Malzahn.
I'm kidding. It feels like
a ton, right?
And Malzahn wasn't even bad.
Yeah, and they're looking for. See, it's proof right there. Sometimes firing a coach that wins you 9 games is not a smart move.
Dan Mullen, Florida.
Because you could go out there and hire your coach that's only going to win you 4 games.
Yeah,
you never know. LSU signed 21 4- and 5-star guys. They're going to be really, really good.
Ooh.
From the ESPN 300 of the top 25 players. So this is the best of the best. 3 of them are going to Oregon.
Nike.
Cha-ching. 3 of them are going to Texas.
No surprise.
1 of them is going to Colorado.
Oh,
that's interesting.
That.
Yeah, and then of course the best player in college football is coming into college football is going to Michigan, the number 1 overall recruit.
Thanks, Dave.
South Carolina did okay in high school recruiting. Their 2 best recruits, they're really stacking the deck for wide receivers. Jordan Gidron, 6'2", 180-pound wide receiver, and Malik Clark, 6'3", 180. So they're getting some height in the in the room, and that's going to help out. Lenore Sellers a lot. We don't know, of course, how productive freshmen are going to be on this team next year because the guys that they already have around are kind of young.
But the biggest win for South Carolina is that Edge Dylan Stewart made it official, Diesel, to return for 2025. $1.5 million the true freshman's expected to receive for next season. On3 Sports on Twitter reported that earlier today. So you're right. They've got some really good receivers. They've got a quarterback coming back. I don't know, man. The signs are positive in what they've done in recruiting. Oh. Also in the portal, you're going to lose Rocket Sanders. That's your biggest question mark.
And here's the problem, Cole. As I'm looking around the list of guys that are in the portal, and this thing is going to swell to this point. I saw something yesterday that said about 550 players were already in the transfer portal on the very first day. They're expecting the transfer portal to grow to over 1,000 players.
God.
I've never seen it that's a record, by the way.
Would they know if you and I entered? Like, would they know? There's so
who
many.
Do we contact? Do we need to send a letter in? Can we log in with our Facebook page?
Let's do it and see if we can enter.
I'd like to announce that I'm entering the transfer portal. I'm a free agent available to apply myself. No, I'm not, because I'm on contract. That's,
commitment.
I've been going back and forth with my buddy all day, saying that these players need to be on contract with the NIL deals that you're giving them. If you're giving a kid $1.2 million to come back and play 13 games, that's absurd. That's completely absurd what you're paying these guys, and then having zero assurances whatsoever that he's going to come back next year. And so the next year after that, you're probably going to have to pay him too.
I'll tell you what I wish, Diesel, and I don't know if we'll ever get to this point or not. I would like to see, in the NIL era of college football, I would like it to have to be publicly announced or posted who is funding this money. So, for example, I'm just using this as an example. Bob's Car Wash or Bob's Car Lot in Columbia is giving, $800,000 a year to Garnet Trust. Whoever it is, I would like to see from each NIL collective. Oregon will be Nike. Michigan will be Dave Portnoy, right? Barstool. South. I would like to see, and it be made public, who's giving the money. I don't know if that'll ever happen or not, but Dylan Stewart, $1.5 million, to your point. Yeah. You've got to do this. This isn't for the rest of his career. This is for one season.
Right. And then we saw with Juice Wells where he said, all right, I'll take that money, but I'm only going to play in like 2 games. And then I'm going to go off and take the money somewhere else, Cole. But no, I believe there need to be contracts that keep these guys in place for 2 years, 3 years. I think there needs to be buyouts that the university pays to the school that they came from. Says, hey, you put them through school for 2 years. We're going to pay you 50% of his scholarship, 50% of the average medical cost, all of the elements that go into paying to have a player on your roster. Just from a university standpoint, all of those costs, they need to be compensated for those costs.
Yeah.
Like the big argument was that coaches can up and leave. Why can't players up and leave?
Sure.
Well, coaches have buyouts. So it stands to reason that players should have buyouts too, right? I mean, it really screws over the school that spent 2 or 3 years developing a guy. They found him. You overlooked him the first time around. They found him. They housed him, they clothed him, they fed him, they put him in the weight room, all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then they coached him up, and then you just come and snatch him and take him away because somebody else who's not associated with your university at all wrote a check. That's ridiculous.
That's where we are, though.
Ridiculous. So to your point about the running back room and where South Carolina is potentially going to go, I mean, in all likelihood, they need to go take a running back out of the portal. The problem is, Cole, that the running back situation in the transfer portal isn't that great.
You're going to have to, though.
Right now.
Yeah, you're going to have to.
There are four running backs currently inside the top 50 players available in the transfer portal. One of them is Wayshawn Parker, 4-star guy who was at Washington State this year. There is Fluff Bothwell, and by God, I hope South Carolina gets him because he's got the best name in the portal. Fluff Bothwell is
Did you say that 10 times fast?
Fluff Bothwell. No, I can't do it. Fluff Bothwell. Fluff.
That's tough.
It's hard.
That's a tough one.
He is rated as a 4-star guy coming out of South Alabama. Mascot?
Jaguars.
There you go. Look at you. You're learning.
I'm telling you,
you're figuring this out. There's also Ahmad Hardy, rated as a 4-star running back coming out of UL Monroe, and Quentin Joyner, running back,
Trojans?
rated as a 4-star coming from Southern Cal.
Yeah, I remember that name.
So only 4 guys, and I don't know where I don't know where Rocket Sanders was rated coming out of the portal last year. If he was inside the top 50, I'm sure he was. He was a really good football player coming out of Arkansas, so I'm sure he was there. But the running back market doesn't look super strong this year. Maybe you take a good G5 player and see if you can develop them a little bit more.
I think Matt Kraft's running back at Miami talked about or already did. I can't remember. I saw something the other day where it was like AJ, Matt Kraft, or Matt about everything will have to tell me. Allen, maybe it's I forget. Anyways,
He'd look good as a Gamecock.
Yeah. In a tough conference.
There's some decent skill players available out there, Cole, from the quarterbacks room. This is the ranking as the overall ranking for best players available. The second best player is a quarterback, Luke Kromenhoek from Florida State. Is that right?
Yeah. It sounds good, yeah.
Kromenhoek?
Yeah.
He's from Florida State. He's the number 2 available prospect. Number 12 is Malik Murphy out of Duke. He's in the portal.
And that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge because Grayson Loftus from right here in the upstate who went to Gaffney Diesel, Grayson Loftus is who Duke brought to ACC Media Day, remember?
That's
it
true.
was a 2-man race between Murphy and Loftus. Loftus played a little bit last year and this year. So now you would think that Grayson, because of Malik transferring, might have the starting job if he can win it.
Mad Craft says Oregon hasn't used the portal at a crazy level over the past few years. Why would you when you're bringing in 20, 25, 4 and 5-star guys every year? Low 4-star guys transfer out of Oregon. 3-star guys transfer out of Oregon, and it really kind of separates the wheat from the chaff. Miller Moss from Southern Cal, he's in the portal. He's the number 28th best player there. And number 41, Jackson Arnold coming out of Oklahoma. Those are your 4 best quarterbacks in the transfer portal right now. It was announced earlier today. He's not inside the top 50. Robbie Ashford is leaving South Carolina. What is the stop number? It's going to be stop number 3
I think,
for him. Look, I wouldn't be hurt about it if Robbie Ashford made his way to App State. If he wanted to follow Dowell Loggins and have another year under the same offensive strategy and mindset and coordinator and coach, I think that would be a smart move for Robbie Ashford's career. Maybe very outside shot. You get a look by an NFL roster. I mean, prime example there is Chase Bryce, who was at Clemson, went to Duke, sucked at Duke, came to App State, ended up getting drafted in the CFL, and he's playing professional football. It may not be the sexiest place to be in the CFL, but he's playing professional football and he's getting paid for it. So, you can certainly go from Robbie Ashford's not going to be a draftable player.
Yeah. And by the way, Rick, we lost you. If you want to call back in, you can. I know you were on hold, but we lost you there. So if you want to call back, give us a buzz.
And then Cole out of the wide receiver room, Eric Singleton out of Georgia Tech, Dane Key from Kentucky, Nick Anderson, Oklahoma, KC Concepcion, the second best name in the draft in the transfer portal from NC State, Barry and Brown from Kentucky. Going to be a rough year for Kentucky at the wide receiver position because 2 of their best players are hitting the bricks. Jonte Cook from Texas and CJ Daniels from LSU are in the portal.
There you go. Those are some of the latest portal players. Just as long as we don't see any more Clemson Tigers or Gamecocks, I think all will be okay. Clemson has done a bad enough job in the 2025 recruiting class that I don't know that they can afford to lose.
They have to hit the portal.
Oh, there's no choice. They're going to have no choice, but it's going to be a very, very interesting offseason after they get their Texas experiment out of the way. JD says a lot of players in the portal, South Carolina, already evaluated and are from the state of South Carolina. We have a good shot at landing a lot of them. I think South Carolina's done a good job, and you talked about those recruits earlier as well. All right, in the very next segment, which SoCon team made a run in the FCS bracket? We talk a lot of FBS football, but we'll take a peek at the FCS bracket. A lot of fun as those championship games are not far away. We'll take a peek at that bracket and get your thoughts and continue the conversation. 71307. Start your text with the word fan. In the last segment, Jeff R. used the text line, which you can do 71307, keyword fan. Jeff said, I heard it was over 1,600 people entering the transfer portal, and it shut down the website that the universities use. That's very likely as many have entered. Netflix can't handle the large fights, so maybe those websites cannot handle the transfer portal.
What I'm seeing is that as of midnight last night, there were about 600 kids in the portal. Now, I don't know.
Doubled by now.
Yeah, I'm sure it has.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's gone up considerably. 1,600, that's be
a lot.
Massive.
That is a lot. It'd be more than double.
Got to teach these kids that, the grass isn't always greener. And, hey, there's a whole new crop of high school kids coming up and joining these rosters. You're not guaranteed a spot.
Yeah.
You may enter the portal and not get picked up at all.
Diesel, as we enter into dark days of no college football on the weekends consistently, obviously you'll have bowl games, you'll have the college football playoffs, you have Army-Navy this weekend, which is a fun game to watch, right? But there is always a little bit of interest if you're a football guy about the FCS playoffs beginning Friday. There are 8 teams remaining. I always enjoy watching the FCS championship, Diesel. Montana State and Idaho play on Friday. On Saturday, North Dakota State. No surprise that they're there, right?
They're always there.
Always there. They have their ticket punched.
Death taxes and North Dakota State making it to the semis.
Correct. North Dakota State playing Mercer out of the SoCon. So the SoCon, Diesel, has done their best at giving North Dakota State a run. It's tough. It's tough business to do that, though.
Here's the problem, Cole, is you go back 20, 25 years. The SoCon was running these playoffs. The SoCon was getting 5 teams into these FCS when it was a 16-team tournament. Mm-hmm. Now it's 24, 28? I don't even know how many teams are in this thing.
Yeah, it's pretty large now. So that's the top half. You have, again, Montana State, Idaho, North Dakota State, Mercer. And then also on Saturday, you have UC Davis versus South Dakota and South Dakota State versus UIW. What is it about the two states of Dakota that good football is played? I mean, I don't know if there will ever be a jump from FCS to FBS in one of those. It seems like there's pretty good football up there in the Dakotas.
Yeah, like I was saying, there was so much power in the Southeast in the FCS, and there was a pocket of power in the Northwest. You'd see Eastern Kentucky always there. You would see Montana always there. Montana was always like the power in the FCS playoffs out of that area. Now, South Dakota State has come on as a power. North Dakota State has as well. I remember being in the line to go watch a playoff game, App State hosting South Dakota State.
Ooh.
And there was a South Dakota State fan who told me, you guys need to look out for North Dakota State. They're coming. Mm-hmm. Like they were in Division II at the time. And they said, hey, they're moving up to FCS in like 2 years. They're a powerhouse.
I've seen them play in person, man.
Could you imagine what the Fargo Dome was like, or what it would have been like if you're a Division II team coming in there back when they were still in Division II, and they're packing out that Fargo Dome that holds probably 15,000 would be my guess, just off the top of my head. And you're used to playing in front of like 2,000, and you're multiplying your fan base, the opposing fan base, by a factor of like 8. That's got to be intimidating as hell. Yeah. That's like being Wofford going down and playing Ole Miss.
Well, they're just so stacked. I mean, and again, I've seen them play in person one time in Frisco. They're physical, they're big, they've got speed. JB says North Dakota State should move up to FBS.
Who would want them though? Well, who would take them geographically?
Mountain West.
Yeah, I mean, I thought when the Pac-12 really strip mined the Mountain West for all they had, that this would be the time that you would see North Dakota State and South Dakota State join the Mountain West together. The problem is, Cole, you think that those schools, the Dakota schools in Montana, are like close to other Mountain West schools? They're not. Yeah. That is a long damn way away from Fargo, Missoula, And I'm sorry, Sioux City, I think, where South Dakota State is, that is a long way to get out to like UC Davis.
A texter brought up that, or asked the question rather, I wonder what's happening at Duke. I believe I saw their starting quarterback and backup are transferring. I texted back the texter. I saw where Malik Murphy was, didn't hear about it, Grayson Loftus, and the texter from the 772 came back and said, just saw on Rivals that Grayson Loftus intends to transfer. I looked it up, and I am seeing that as well on Duke Wire, that Duke quarterback Grayson Loftus joins Malik Murphy as of 40 minutes ago in the transfer portal. So that's both Duke quarterbacks within 24 hours that have now entered the portal. That surprises me. I thought that Grayson might take over the job, but Malik Murphy from Texas to Duke, now in the portal again. Grayson Loftus went to Duke straight out of high school, so this will be his first move in the portal. But texter, appreciate that. Did not see that until you sent that in.
Cole, it is a 13-hour drive from Missoula, Montana to Reno, another Mountain West member school. Guess how far of a drive it is from Reno to Fargo?
15.
23 hours.
There's no way.
23 hours. So we had Tom upset last week that he was having to drive to New Mexico. It is the same driving distance in hours from Fargo, North Dakota to Reno, Nevada, as it is from Columbia, South Carolina to Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Yeah, I'll pass on that.
Absurd how far it is.
That's a long ways.
That's why they're not getting into the Mountain West.
Wow. Well, they're screwed then. They're going to stay FCS.
When we come back, Cole, let's talk to David Newton of ESPN, covers the Carolina Panthers. What does he have to say about the Panthers' resurgence over the last 5 weeks? That's coming up next. You know, Cole, it feels weird to talk about a 3-10 football team who's lost 3 straight games in a row and say that we actually have a lot of hope about their future and the trajectory of this team. But that is absolutely true about the Carolina Panthers, something that I did not expect that I would be saying at any point in the season. 2 straight wins against New Orleans and New York, and then 3 one-possession losses against 3 of the best teams in the NFL. We go to the phone lines right now, bring in David Newton of ESPN, covers the Carolina Panthers, to talk about it. David, how improbable is this turn of events over the last 5 weeks that we've seen from these Carolina Panthers? I can't imagine that, after week 3 or 4 of the season, you thought you'd be writing hopeful stories about this team either.
Yeah, it's about as improbable as the starting quarterback getting in a car accident and Bryce Young coming back and looking like the top pick of the 2023 draft should.
You're right, but it did happen, David. As to Diesel's point, there is positivity. When you talk about Sunday's game, man, against Philadelphia, I watched that game, and that was a heartbreaker at the very end there with Xavier Legette, David, having the opportunity to take the lead and a ball that he felt like he thought he caught at the moment. Obviously, replay showed that it did hit the ground. Do you view Xavier Legette and the drops he's had as a serious issue, or do you think that's something he'll continue to learn from in his days in the NFL?
Well, he's still a rookie, and rookies make mistakes, as we all know, and I think he'll grow from them, and he'll get better from them. I mean, he's had a hand injury. I know the coach said that really had no factor in the drop or the drops he's had lately, but again, it was a big moment for Bryce. It was a big moment for Legette. Had it gone the other way, our conversation really would have been different. The last couple of weeks, there have been a couple of plays like that. If you look at it, Adam Thielen had a ball, and he felt like he did catch it in bounds 2 weeks ago against Tampa Bay. But as he reminded, had he made the catch the first time because he had to take a second stab at the ball, then there would have been no question about that. So even veterans, have mistakes out there and cost teams games. So yeah, I think there's just a lot of positivity going around right now. Most of it centers around Bryce Young, and that's kind of why I said that as improbable as Andy Dalton getting in a car wreck, and all of a sudden now Bryce has been resurrected and looking like a good quarterback again, because who would have ever guessed that would have happened?
Yeah, David, I was in the stadium for that game against Tampa, and it sure as hell looked like a catch to me. Even on replay, it looked like a catch to me. Looking straight down that sideline, I thought he had it. I can't believe that call got overturned, I believe, or upheld the way that it was. I mean, and to your point, Bryce Young's putting the ball on the money. You remember weeks 2, 3, 4, he was sailing passes. He was throwing him in the dirt. He was kind of all over the place. I've remarked that Bryce has kind of stopped treating playing quarterback in the NFL like it's a homework assignment. This idea that I'm supposed to be smarter, that I'm supposed to outthink everybody, that I'm supposed to be so precise. Well, he stopped playing that way. He's out there having fun and he's creating with his feet. Would you agree with that assessment? And how have you seen Bryce's demeanor change in these past 4 or 5 weeks? Early season, man, he looked like he was on the verge of tears half the time.
Yeah, and I think a part of it is, during the time he was sitting and watching Andy Dalton, he didn't know if he was going to get another chance. I asked Canales the other day, yesterday, if that car wreck had not happened, what would we be looking at right now? And he kind of looked at me and said, that it would be interesting to know because we don't know what really would have happened right there. So I know they were wanting to go with Andy a lot longer because they felt like they could be in contention for the division if they could win a few games and not get totally left behind. But again, going back to Bryce, he's kind of got a nothing to lose attitude out there, and he's just letting the ball rip, playing, having fun. The smile is back on his face. That's good to see. He's confident in his offensive line, and he can step up in the pocket. He's being really decisive. I mean, the decisive part, I think, is the one you can't overlook, not just on his throws, but on his runs. I mean, when he sees the play's not there, he doesn't hesitate to put his head down and take off. He's still got to learn to slide a little better, but he's just all around looking more like Alabama Bryce Young than he did, last year's Bryce Young.
David, does his improvement in your mind change the conversations from what the future is at quarterback to maybe a secure future with Bryce Young?
Yeah, because I don't think they really had an idea what was going to happen. I mean, they still haven't come out and said, hey, Bryce can be our franchise quarterback. I've pushed as much as I can on that, but they do seem to feel that Bryce, they could go in the next season with Bryce and either Andy Dalton or another veteran quarterback and be in pretty good shape. So I think Bryce has given them enough confidence where they can move forward with him and not worry about drafting another quarterback or even trading Bryce. I think the worst thing they probably would do is to trade Bryce Young, particularly the way he's playing right now, because if he goes on to be what everybody thought he could be coming out of college, then they look really bad.
David, to that point, where is Andy Dalton in his desire to stay with this team for another year? Do you believe he'll be on the roster as a Carolina Panther again in 2025?
He wants to stay. He told me he wants to stay. If the team, sees that he can be that guy that could, kind of still be a mentor and still be a guy that could come in and help them win games after if Bryce were to get hurt or struggle some, I think he definitely would be here next year.
David Newton, ESPN, joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. David, you have covered football in general for a while. In your years of experience, how does a team that is out of playoff contention find ways to motivate the team and staff week in and week out down the stretch like the situation we're in now?
Well, I mean, you've seen it throughout, especially with this team, going back to some of the Ron Rivera years. The first few years he was with the team with Cam Newton as the quarterback. They won 6 games their first year, but they finished strong. They didn't win many the first part of the year. They did the same thing the second year when they came on strong towards the end and won 7 games, and that ultimately propelled them to that 2013 season when they went 12-4 and won the division and ultimately got them ready for that 2015 run to the Super Bowl. So players are playing for their contract. They're playing for playing time next year. They're playing for, again, put foot on the table for their family, because if they go out there and don't compete and don't play hard, that'll show up on tape real fast, and the staff will look at that going into the next season. I know when other coaches have come in here the last few years, some of them have said specifically they go back and look at the tape of the last 4 games of the season just to see how hard players are playing, to see who they wanted to keep around.
He covers the Carolina Panthers for ESPN NFL Nation. David Newton joining us here on the Fan Upstate. Anish Shroff made a really good point immediately after the game Sunday, saying first you lose big, then you lose small, then you win small, then you win big. And it feels like the Carolina Panthers are right there in between that lose small, win small spot on that scale. How is the locker room taking the position where they are right now? From the interviews that you've done, are the players encouraged even though they're losing games the way they have the last 3 weeks, or are they discouraged by the losses?
I think they're encouraged. I mean, there are no moral victories out there for them, but they realize that they're getting closer to being who they want to be, and they realize that there's still some pieces missing, especially on the defensive side. And if they can get that turned around and get that just imagine that they kept some of the pieces from last year's defense and been healthy and not lost players like Derrick Brown, in the first game, where this unit might be. So I think they realize that the tide's starting to turn, but if they slack off or if they don't stay focused and play as hard as they can, then it can turn back the other way real fast.
David, you mentioned a few minutes ago about players playing for their jobs down the stretch. In your mind, who are some of those players that may be on the line that could be back next year, but also you'd put a question mark or an asterisk beside their name? And of those, who do you think the Panthers should retain?
That's a good question. I think some of the defensive players for sure. They're going to make some changes on that defense because they just got to. They got to do some upgrades there. I don't want to call any specific names right now because I don't think there's anybody that's really not playing well. I think the cornerback position opposite J.C. Horn, I think those guys like Michael Jackson and people like that, their jobs could be on the line. I think most of the starting offensive line, you still got to look at Icky, the guy that can be the left tackle. He's playing a lot better this year, so I think not that his job's on the line, but there's still something to prove for him. So Bryce Young, I mean, his job's still on the line. I mean, if he slacks off and doesn't play well in one game, people are going to go back to saying, well, he's back to being what he was last year and early this season. So again, nobody on this team is that good to where they can't be out there trying to prove themselves and think that like their job's on the line. Maybe Chuba Hubbard's the only one right now because he's having a really good season and gotten over 1,000 yards and looking like a smart move to go ahead and give him an extension when they did.
Yeah, and to that point, the running back position, just brutal to have Worthy go down the way that he did. He'd only been back for, 3-4 games? And to tear an ACL in a game like that, that's tough to watch. In your mind, is that's got to be a key position that they want to go after somebody, second round maybe in the 25 draft next year?
That'll be interesting because, I mean, my guess would be that it's probably going to be at least middle of next season before Brooks is ready to return. I mean, he took 12 months to get ready after, this last, his first knee injury that he hurt at Texas. So I got to imagine that's usually longer recovery for the second one, especially on the same knee. So I got to imagine that they're probably not banking on him for next season, probably the next season after that. So whether they'll use that high of a draft pick on there. I mean, they've still got Miles Sanders under contract. They can use him as a backup. The money might be a factor what they want to do there. But, that's definitely a position they've got to build some depth around behind Chuba.
David, you have colleagues, obviously, that cover other teams in the National Football League. When you look at the Panthers' rebuild with Canales and Dan Morgan and them trying to get back to relevancy, who do you compare this organization to? I mean, you see a team not far north from Charlotte with Dan Quinn, who have had a very, very quick rebuild in year one, obviously have tapered off a little bit from the start that they had. But who would you compare the resurgence to when you talk about what ifs for the Carolina Panthers?
I don't know if there's another team this year that you'd compare them to as much as you could look back at the 2002 team in Carolina. They were coming off that 1-15 season in 2001. Dan Morgan was a player on that. They won 7 games, I believe, that next year. And the next year they were in the Super Bowl, and they did it by building the way that Dan's trying to build right now. And I think that's kind of the model that he's using. You want to find tough physical guys that are, as he calls them, their dogs, and try to put enough skilled players around the quarterback to be successful. I mean, that team had Steve Smith on it, Muhsin Muhammad. It had he added Jake Delhomme in 23, and it really took off because he was not a great quarterback, but he was a really steady quarterback that could win games and not lose them for you.
David, Cole and I have a bet based on the results of Sunday's Cowboys-Panthers game. He's a diehard Dallas Cowboy fan. He's wearing the star right now, which should be illegal in this market. But the loser has to let the winner use face paint and paint the logo of the winning team on their forehead while we do the following show. Who's going to be looking like the idiot with the logo on the forehead?
Well, the good thing you're on radio, so nobody's really going to see it.
Well, we're on a live video stream too.
Okay, well, sorry about that. I apologize for missing that point. So I think either one of you has got a logo on your forehead is going to look pretty bad. So, this is interesting. The Panthers, I don't know if you saw the story I put up today. They haven't been favored in the game since 2022. 33 straight games they've been underdogs. And they're a favorite right now against the Cowboys. And so 2-point favorite. I don't think they're going to fall out of the favorite role. It'd be a big fall to go from 2 up to 1 down. So, the last time they were a favorite was back in 22, and they were favored against Pittsburgh at home, and they lost that game. So, I don't know. I can't really make a prediction on this one. I mean, I think Dallas has still got enough pieces where they can be dangerous. The Panthers may play down to their competition if the Dallas is playing down to Dallas. That kind of says where things are right there, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. David, my last question for you. Your thoughts on what has been rumored for a former NFL coach and Bill Belichick possibly heading to the college level to take the North Carolina Tar Heels job?
Yeah, that's quite a turn of events. I didn't see that coming at all. And, the rumors you hear or the stories you read about, he's kind of setting up his son maybe to be the coach after him. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but to me, it shows just how much he missed being on the sideline and missed being around the locker room, and he wants to go out there and prove himself. It just still feels really odd. The guy, as close as he is to being the all-time winningest coach in the NFL, would go to the college ranks at the age of 72 because, if he wants to get back and get Don Shula's record, he's going to have to get back to the NFL. And winning games in North Carolina is not going to qualify him for that. So I find the whole thing kind of bizarre from both standpoints, from North Carolina standpoint and from Belichick. But I think, again, it shows just how hungry both are to get out there and prove themselves.
David, great stuff as always. We appreciate your time each and every time you join us right here on the Fan Upstate, and we look forward to talking to you again soon, man.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
That's David Newton of ESPN. Diesel, what a stat. 32 straight games the Panthers have been underdogs.
Yeah.
I'm looking for his article on that now. I didn't know that, and I didn't see that until he said it. So that is just astronomical. That's a long time.
Cole, when did Dak Prescott go down? After what game or during which game? Do you remember off the top of your head?
No, I don't. Not off the top of my head. It's been such
I'm trying to figure out
season.
Because the Cowboys are 4-2 on the road this season. Carolina Panthers are 2-5 at home. Now, obviously, the script is kind of flipped on both of these teams over the past 6-7 weeks or so. So I'm trying to figure out with Dallas how many of those wins came after Dak Prescott got injured.
Maybe a couple.
Because their most recent away games, they won on the road at Washington 34-26, and then at the Falcons 27-21. Lost at the Falcons, lost at the 49ers. And then you go back to that, you're back to week number 4 against the Steelers. And I know Dak was still there, was still active at the time. But, man, that's tough. And this whole Belichick thing, trying to set up his son to be the next head coach, it feels a little Game of Thronesy, doesn't it?
It's interesting.
It's like you're trying to put into contract and codify that your son will be taken care of as a head coach in a couple of years from now.
We're gonna get into that at 6:20 right here on the Fan Upstate. So stay tuned for that, the Bill Belichick discussion. I did find the article though, Diesel, on ESPN.com by David Newton, and the first time since 2022, the Carolina Panthers are a favorite. Oh, my word. That was a 33 straight game streak as underdogs.
Would that have been with Baker?
Maybe so. Maybe so. The sixth longest, by the way, that 33 straight game streak, that 33 straight streak as an underdog was the sixth longest by any team since the 1970 merger, and the longest streak for the Carolina Panthers in franchise history of being the underdog, the longest drought since the 2012-2014 Jaguars. So as of right now, to David's point, they're 2-point favorites against the 5-8 Cowboys, who my worry is, Diesel, after last night, they're automatically eliminated, or they're officially eliminated from playoff contention. I'm worried now. I don't know what they'll have to play for. So that is my biggest worry, and I do feel a cold coming on next Monday. I don't know if I'll be here or not.
Well, we can do it on Tuesday. And, Cole, they're playing on one day's less rest.
Yeah,
sure. The Carolina Panthers will be, and they're on the road. If this was a game at Dallas, then we'd be talking about a different story. You're not traveling, you're not losing a day for travel. But they played last night. They got to be ready to play again in 6 days. One of those days is going to be a travel day. So they've got 5 days to get ready for this team.
And here's a crazy stat for you before we run to a break. We're talking about Bryce Young. We talked about Bryce with David Newton of ESPN just a few minutes ago, Diesel. Bryce Young had a 9.9 QBR the first two games. 9.9.
Not 39.9?
No. 9.9,
Sure?
which was
Okay.
by far the worst, right? He was then benched for Andy Dalton. David mentioned the car wreck. Since week 9, Bryce Young ranks 13th in the NFL.
Wow.
13th in total QBR at 60, which isn't bad.
That is fascinating. That
It really
he's
is.
been able to come back and change the way he plays. You know, I mean, who knows? What did somebody say in his ear? What did somebody whisper in his ear and say, hey, just go play loose, man. Play free. Stop thinking so much. Just throw the ball.
If Bryce Young and the Panthers
Believe in the
remain,
ball. Throw yourself.
Diesel, if they remain favorites against Dallas and cover, it'll be the first time they've done that since September 23rd, 2021, when they defeated the Texans 24-9 as a 9-point favorite to David's point. Last time they were favorites, it was against Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they lost that game. So I'll be there. I'm not excited about the game at all because I think they're going to lose, but who knows?
Where'd you get tickets from?
The same place you got tickets from.
Oh. Did you get a good number of them? Am I holding up the right number of tickets?
Yes.
All right.
That's correct. I was going to go cover the game just so I could go for free, but it ended up working out. So
I can't go because it's a 1:00 game. I'll be at Dave & Buster's on Woodruff Road in Greenville. Come and join me from 1 to 2 on Sunday. Dave & Buster's Woodruff Road. We'll get you hooked up with a free $10 power-up play card if you're one of the first 10 that gets there and comes to see me.
Brian says Cole needs to go to the game on the Facebook stream. Sadly, I am. I have to go watch it in person. All right, Diesel, we are 11 days out, 11 days away from Clemson, Texas. We haven't gotten into this conversation yet today, but I posted this on the Facebook page earlier at the Fan Upstate, and I posed the question, and then the very next segment to all the Clemson fans out there listening, how are you feeling about this matchup 11 days out? What are your early thoughts? I'll get to the comments on the Facebook page as well as hear from you Clemson fans next. How are you feeling, Clemson fans, about the matchup that's 11 days from today with the Texas Longhorns? I know they didn't look fantastic against Georgia offensively. However, defensively, they did. They looked really, really good defensively. So I posed the question to any Clemson fan out there on Facebook, listening on 97.1 Spartanburg, 97.7 FM in Greenville, and on the free Odyssey app. We're also live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You can watch the show there. How are you feeling? What are your early thoughts? You can text in your thoughts, 71307. Start your text with the word fan. You can also call into the show. The phone lines are open, 844-326-3663. Brian says, I'm on the seat about the game. Texas has a great defense, and Clemson offense can throw it around when they're hot, but they find a way to run. Same goes for Texas offense and Clemson defense. It comes down to turnovers. Diesel, do you think the majority of Clemson fans that we will hear from are going to have an optimistic approach to this game 11 days from now?
They're going to be optimistic because I think Dabo's going to take away their season tickets if they say anything bad.
Calling it day.
Yeah, they're gonna cancel. They're gonna put a cancel stop on your credit card payment. We don't want your money anymore. Here's the thing, Colt. What's Clemson good at right now? Throwing the football. Mm-hmm. What's Clemson bad at right now? Running the football. What is Texas really, really, really good at stopping?
The pass.
The pass.
Yeah,
they are number one in the country at stopping the pass, giving up just 5.1 yards per attempt. 8.6 yards per completion. Clemson's going to have a hard task if you can't use the run effectively. And if Phil Maffa is still so injured that he can't go, and Cade Klubnik isn't busting out 30, 40-yard runs a pop, it's going to be hard for them. It's going to be a hard game for Clemson to win. I'm not saying it's impossible. I would give it about I would be shocked, and I haven't even gone to look to see what the opening spread
11.
is. 11? That sounds about right. I would probably have put it at 10.
Yeah, I say 11. Let me double check that. I tweeted it out as soon as it came out. Yes, it is still 11. So as of right now, it's still 11 points in favor of the Texas Longhorns. I posed this question on our Facebook page earlier today. Several of you Tolos commented on the page as, Clemson, 11-point underdog. You would think it's going to be an uphill battle. Let's see what the comment section as of right now says. Diesel. Kevin says Texas by 10. Steven says we have the best starting quarterback in the game. John says it all depends on who's going to play running back. Maffa has been hurt, and it shows. The backup got hurt last week, so looks like he's done. I think that's going to play a huge role, and if we win or lose this game. We also have got to learn how to play 4 full quarters. The way that we can start the game is the way we should finish the game. I have not seen that all season. I think John on Facebook, if you're listening, John, I think you hit the nail on the head. Diesel and I have talked about it. I said it. Clemson has looked really good in quarters. However, for whatever reason, I don't know if their pocket has a hole in it, Diesel, and quarters keep falling out. They can't put 4 quarters together. And we've seen that all season long. John's exactly right. They've got the ability to, if they can do what they did in the first quarter against South Carolina or the App State game or Wake Forest, if they can put those 4 quarters together, I said it on Twitter, I think this team can hang with anyone in the postseason if they can put those 4 quarters together. But what has shown you, what's given you confidence and hope that that's a possibility? That's the concern right now.
Yeah, and it feels like this team is very one-dimensional. They don't have enough. Clemson doesn't have enough depth at the running back position that now that Moff is injured, they don't have somebody who can step right back in and pick things up at a high level.
Jay Haynes is hurt too.
Yeah, you're really, really thin at that position, so it makes you one-dimensional. In a game like that, that means Texas's elite defense, elite pass defense, can start to become ball hawks. Because they know you're not going to run the football. They can play back and then try to jump the routes.
JD says, Cole, yeah, I think Texas wins. Let's see. On the stream, Matt About Everything says, I say 27-17 Tigers. Are you being serious, Matt Kraft? You really do? Are you really thinking Clemson's going to win? Rowdy Tiger on Twitter says if Clemson plays all 4 quarters of football, we can win that game. Again, echoing what we just talked about.
Yeah, but you need 3 games to play all 4 quarters.
That's the problem. It is. And again, that's true. And it's not going to, that doesn't give you much hope. JD says, how about Dabo may have too much involvement in the offense that may hurt them as well. Mad says, this is the game Dabo dominates. Finally in the playoff, he's got a whole month to get his squad ready. Dabo with time equals danger. Clemson will be a different squad.
JD, what are you basing that off of? There's been that rumor all season long that Dabo was too involved in the offense. Talking about the Georgia game and then saying, oh, by the middle of the season, they finally let Garrett Riley take the reins. I've yet to see anything that puts any basis of fact in that statement. If you've seen something that I haven't seen, please tell me. But I haven't seen that. That is a supposition from fans.
Yeah, I think it's been discussed. Again, I think it's more of a what if.
But speaking of what ifs, Cole, here, if Clemson does win this game, and it's not on a miracle late second field goal in a low-scoring game, or even if it is, it really doesn't really matter. But if Clemson wins this football game, and especially if they win it convincingly, does that change the entire narrative about Clemson this season and about Dabo Swinney and the direction of this program? I mean, Dabo said it in his press conference, yesterday or the day before, that said, people want me to change. But guess what? I haven't changed, and I'm still here. I'm in the playoff.
If they beat Texas, my opinion is yes. Yes, it does change the narrative. For me, Diesel, them beating SMU in the ACC championship game, Diesel, does not quantify that being a yes. However, to answer your question, if they beat the Longhorns, then yes, I believe it does change the narrative because this is an SEC team. It's a premier program. It's an elite coach at the highest level, and Texas has NFL players all over the field, So I think it does. Josh on the Facebook post from earlier today said Texas will boat race us. Danny says we will need perfection. Let's see. Dwayne says if you get our defense mind mentality right, we might have a shot. Chris says
you better be working on tackling all week because that was an Achilles heel. If you're a defensive coach, you're screaming at the TV the way Clemson tackled on Saturday.
Yeah. Chris says Quinn is banged up. Couldn't advantage Clemson if the secondary can hold up long enough for us to get to the quarterback. Homecoming game for Cade, we shall see.
That is interesting. You said yesterday that these two players, that Quinn Ewers and Cade Klubnik, played each other in the state championship game. 2 years ago?
2020.
2020.
Yep.
God. 4 years ago?
Yeah. So Cade Cade played in the state championship 19, 20, and 21 with Westlake. I saw him play in person. I was on the sidelines for the 21 game. I swear, I think I've seen this right.
Quinn Ewers game?
No, I think the Quinn Ewers game was the 2020 year, and I think 2021 was Westlake versus somebody else. I was there for that one. I wasn't there in 20, but I'm 99% sure that the game I saw in person was not Cade versus Quinn. I think that was a year before in 2020.
Was that what classification were those schools? 5A?
6A.
6A, as big as it gets, right?
I believe it. I believe it was the highest classification.
Okay.
Yeah, Westlake High School is the highest classification in Texas, and it was a late night game. They have 2 divisions in each, so I think they have 12 total championship games.
Oh, wow.
Because each classification has Division 1 and Division 2, so there's 12 games over 3 days.
Why don't those two play each other?
I don't know. It's a good question. Cam in Boiling Springs chimes in on the text line. He says Texas beats Clemson by at least 3 touchdowns.
Ooh.
Woo! I don't know if Cam's a Gamecock fan or not, but
so let's argue the other side of that coin there. What if Texas beats Clemson by a touchdown or less? So Clemson, as the 12 seed, would have played at times in the season #1 team in the country, #2 going into this thing. No, what did they fall to? Did they fall to 3?
Who's that?
Texas. Their top 25 rankings. Either way,
yeah,
they will have played a top 5 team on the road in a playoff game at their home stadium and played them to within a touchdown.
Sure.
In a year where Clemson and their running game was severely hampered. So if you're able to keep it within a touchdown against a team that is going crazy on NIL, I don't know how hard Texas hits the transfer portal again. You don't really have to hit it super hard when you're recruiting a lot of 4- and 5-star guys. I think that would be a tremendous coaching job by Dabo Swinney, and it may get us to a point, Cole, where you and I have to eat some crow.
Yeah, if they keep it within 7, I think so. I think that's a very good statement to go out there and hang with them.
If they beat them, it's like, you know what, Dabo, we were wrong.
Yeah.
Do things your way. It was just a down year. That's all it was. It was just a down year. You know what you're doing. I'm going to shut up about it, and we just won't talk Clemson football.
I think that's fair. I think if they do beat Texas, I do think we have. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning about this, Diesel, who's a Gamecock fan, and people respect Dabo for standing in what he believes in and doing it his way. People respect that. However, if that never translates to winning on the highest level, that's where there's going to be problems. However, to your point, if Clemson goes and takes down Big Bad Texas, the SEC, one of the best teams in the SEC, I 100% think the narrative's gone. It shifts. We have to give him his flowers. I know it's just one game, but with the lack of depth at running back and the uncertainty of going of how you're going to run the football going into that game, Diesel, I think if they can pull this out, this is one of Dabo's biggest wins of his career.
Does it also blow a big old hole in the side of the boat of the SEC dominance conversation? If Big Bad Texas goes down to a 12-ranked Clemson, 12-seeded Clemson, with no running game to speak of, does that do much to squash this idea that the SEC is far and away elite? I mean, like,
to some it will.
I mean,
Madcraft.
Yeah, well, to Madcraft, it's already been done. Matt, you know what, Matt? Are we sure that Madcraft is not Danny Cannell? We've never seen them in a room together.
Oh,
are we sure
that
Madcraft and Danny Cannell are not the same person?
I like that.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch and see what happens. Who was it earlier? I believe it was Russman who said that the results of this game really does show us where Dabo Swinney is in his career. This is certainly a litmus test for his career, and I wouldn't say that it would cause a change in other coaches. But Cole, we've talked about why is Dabo Swinney the only one, or at least the poster boy for not using the transfer portal aggressively and really trusting his guys and getting them on the back end and rewarding their success and rewarding their patience and longevity with the program with NIL money. Why have we not seen other programs try the same thing?
No, it's
interesting. And if other programs are trying the same thing, why are we not hearing about it? Why is Dabo essentially on a rock in a raging river by himself?
Couple of texts before we run to a break. Tyler B says, sorry if you've already covered this. I don't get to listen a lot during the holidays, but I was curious of what you think about Tennessee versus Ohio State. We talked about it yesterday briefly. We said it was going to be a very good matchup. I think that Tennessee has a really good advantage right now with Ohio State kind of having to play for everything. Texter says, 2021 6A Division II championship, and another texter says the same thing. Caden Westlake won 52-34. So texter, was 21 Cade versus Quinn though? Because if it was, I was there. I just thought for whatever reason Cade and Quinn were 2020. But texter says Texas can move the ball between the 20s, but they can't score. Texter says I disagree if they beat Texas. Texas really didn't play anybody all year, so I don't think they're as good as their stats look. Boomer Bill says Texas has had a good defense against their easy schedule. When they play a good team, parentheses, Georgia, they don't look as good. Clemson has a great chance. G says Texas wins. Cam says the SEC is average at best this year, but they still are good enough and stronger than Clemson. They're 0-2. BS the schedule this year, says Cam.
I wouldn't say average at best. They're just not head and shoulders bigger, better, stronger than everybody else.
They don't have an elite team either.
Right.
They don't have the Alabama. Georgia, I guess you could say Georgia's elite, but you also have seen Georgia lose.
Yeah, but Carson Beck looks like trash right now.
Yeah, and he also has one arm.
According to Google, by the way, it was January 2021 when Quinn
the 2020
and Cade
season
played each other. Well, yes, 2020 season, championship in January of 21. That's according to Google.
That's correct, but I was not there for that
South
one.
Lake versus Westlake.
I don't think I moved to Dallas until the fall of 21.
Is there a North Lake and an East Lake? Are they good?
Yes, they are.
They're very good too.
Everybody
Everybody in Texas is good. When we come back, Cole, let's take a whip around the sports world, see what else is happening out there. Our Daily Wires coming up next. A lot going on out there in the sports world, Cole. Let's talk about it all quickly in what we call our Daily Wires. This is the buzz happening around the sports world. On Monday Night Football, the Cincinnati Bengals defeated the Dallas Cowboys 27-20. The Cowboys are now officially eliminated from playoff contention. And, Cole, I couldn't tell if it was the slightly moldy bread that I ate or if I accidentally took some hallucinogens or my dog's medicine because the game looked funny. The Simpsons cast.
Yeah, I didn't watch it, but the Cowboys are going to cowboy and lose on the most cowboy way possible. I don't know if you've seen this yet. You Tolos, maybe who didn't watch the game. Down a touchdown, fourth quarter, getting the ball back. Cincinnati's punting Diesel. Dallas blocks the punt. And what normally happens when you block a punt? The ball goes that way. However, Dallas blocks the punt, and the ball goes this way toward the first down marker. Hits a Cowboys player, and the Bengals fall on it for a first down. Most Cowboys thing
just
ever.
The way we drew it up.
Unbelievable.
Jerry Jones about that said, maybe we shouldn't try to block a punt.
Great. Jerry, just shut up. Just shut up. I mean, come on.
And if Cole, it couldn't get any worse, Dallas Cowboys linebacker DeMarvion Overshown had a triple tear in his right knee, ACL, MCL, and PCL.
Number 2.
And that's going to be a long, long time, Cole. I wonder if he even come back from that.
Well, this is the second time it's happened. He is one of the best linebackers, up-and-coming linebackers.
Shredded would be the word.
Yes, had a huge, bright future, and now that is brutal loss.
Staying with the NFL, T. Higgins has failed to reach a long-term deal with the team in each of his past 2 off seasons and is now playing on the 1-year franchise tag. But in his post-game news conference, Joe Burrow said that he believed the team will find a way to keep T. Higgins around, saying, quote, those discussions are ongoing. I'm confident that I think we're going to do what it takes to bring T back.
Diesel, I watched
that. At what point did you say, just go?
Well, here's the problem. He's too good. I watched that game. They're 5-8. There's too much talent on that team to be 5-8. Zach Taylor has got to be fired. Point blank, period. They're too talented.
Georgia quarterback Carson Beck injured his right elbow when he was hit while throwing on Saturday's SEC championship game against Texas and is exploring treatment options with doctors. The university said in a statement there was no timetable for Beck's potential return. It's good news that this is coming out after the College Football Playoff Selection Committee made their selections. Otherwise, they had already set the precedent that when your starting quarterback goes down, you got to pull him out of the playoff.
True. Maybe they did that on purpose.
Yeah. Really, really interesting there, Cole. Let's see. Duke starting quarterback Malik Murphy plans to enter the NCAA transfer portal.
And Grayson Loftus now, the backup.
And Grayson Loftus. Murphy threw for a school record 26 touchdown passes in leading Duke to a 9-3 record. He's definitely going to be sought after in a big, big way. He'll have 2 years of eligibility remaining at his next stop. He told ESPN that he would not play in the Gator Bowl matchup with Ole Miss. So, God, this is going to be a name your score game for Ole Miss, depending on how many players they lose, because who knows? It's Lane Kiffin's team. Sometimes they lose a lot of players. Wisconsin quarterback Tyler Van Dyke is also entering the transfer portal. A source told ESPN's Pete Thamel on Monday. The fifth-year quarterback appeared in 3 games this fall during his debut season with the Badgers before sustaining a season-ending injury against Alabama on September 14th. Van Dyke was a 3-year starter at Miami from 21 through 23, has just shy of 8,000 career passing yards and 55 career touchdown passes, and will enter the portal with 1 year of eligibility remaining. Why leave?
Money? I don't know. Maybe the conversation.
Maybe he's saying I've been hurt so many times, I'm not gonna make it in the NFL.
Could be.
I'm not gonna make generational money in the NFL. Might as well see if I can squeeze another $150K out of some team that will give me the money, even though I've been injured. South Carolina's Kyle Kennard has won the 2024 Bronco Nagurski Trophy, Cole, which honors the nation's top defensive player. He is the first South Carolina Gamecock to ever win that award. That's a good one.
It's a big-time award, and he deserves it, no doubt.
And hey, that's a great tool to use in recruiting, right? To be able to pull that card out, saying we're producing Bronco Nagurski winners. Shane Beamer is going to be using that card for years to come. UCF has announced that they are bringing Scott Frost back to campus. Scott Frost will be the next previous coach of the UCF Golden Knights. Here's what he had to say about taking this job again.
It was hard for me to leave. It was emotional. You know, when you're climbing the ladder of success in life, sometimes they forget to tell you to stop when you're happy. You know, you have good times and bad times everywhere. And this game, sometimes you get it done and sometimes you don't. We did the right things here and pushed the right buttons and got it done. And I think we can do that again. In fact, I know we can do that again if we do the right things.
Interesting.
Are you excited about part two of Scott Frost?
Line them up outside the building. Who's excited, right? Go ahead and form the line.
And here's one more sad one for you. This is a big one, though. 64-year-old Chicago Cubs Hall of Famer, second baseman Ryne Sandberg announced via Instagram today that his cancer has returned and spread to other organs, forcing more, quote, intensive treatment.
That's tough, man. That's really, really tough. I hate that. I hate the C word. I really do. And I know a lot of people out there have been impacted by it more than I have, but it's you hate hearing that. So best wishes to him. All right, Diesel, we will football season's winding down, but we will welfare check one more time. Zach Taylor, Ryan Day, Lincoln Riley, those coaches on the hot seat. If you Tolos want to throw a coach out there as well for us to do a welfare check on, hit us up, 71307, keyword fan. It is time to do a welfare check to see who's home, who's been fired, who's on the hot seat in the college football world, Diesel, in the NFL world. The football season sadly coming to an end. Don't tear up too much, but football season in general is just great for us because we have all these guests on every week and these segments, and you get so much interaction. But it's almost New Year's.
What do our Tolos do when the NFL is done and college football is done?
I don't want to talk about it.
You're like, it's never done.
I don't want to talk about it.
There's no such thing as an offseason. You got to diversify.
Football's
what you're
the
into.
best, though, man.
You start talking highlight on this show.
Yeah,
we'll never talk wrestling.
That's true. That's true. We do agree on that. Very soon we'll be talking a lot of basketball, college basketball, baseball coming up in a few months. So it's going to be fun. But if you're a football junkie like me, it does make you a little bit sad.
I'm glad that college baseball is finally truly catching on as a mainstream sport that people will talk about.
Well, it helps when your teams are good.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Helps a little bit.
We are in a target-rich environment of good baseball programs where we are right now.
We definitely are. All right, let's sound the siren. Let's do a little welfare check on the hottest coaches in the game. Zach Wofford on the YouTube stream says, I don't care what people say but James Franklin needs to be on the hot seat at Penn State because he can't win the big one over there. Zach, Diesel can tell you, I agree with you on that. I have said many times that I think James Franklin needs to be fired. Let's start at the bottom of the list with James Franklin since Zach brought him up. Diesel, this playoff run is going to, in my opinion, dictate what happens for James Franklin. As of right now, before the playoffs start, where would you have him on the hot seat?
Before the playoffs start, he's sitting at a hard 5.
Okay.
Right now. And what happens in the playoff determines where he finishes. If he beats SMU, he drops to about a 4. Because Penn State fans will be like, okay, great. You have to say this is a big game. You want a playoff game. This is a big game. You beat us, plus it's at home, right? If you lose, bam, you're fired. I think you're fired.
Whew. All right, now I'll say this.
Am I wrong?
No, if you lose, I think there's conversations being had. I also have them at a 5, by the way.
Number 6, Penn State loses at home to an SMU that some people are questioning whether or not they even deserve to be here. You got a team from Texas coming up there playing in the ice and the snow. Mm-hmm. You can't lose to them. You cannot lose to them.
However, on the flip side of things, Diesel, if you had to choose a road in the college football playoff, you would choose Penn State's road because they could beat SMU. And then guess who they'd have after that in the second round? They'd have Boise State. They beat Boise State. Diesel, you're talking about James Franklin making me, Cole Bryson, eat a lot of crow. And I'm in the third round of the postseason, says James Franklin, playing probably Georgia or Notre Dame, just as much as, and I agree with you, by the way, just as much as a first-round loss to SMU would make his seat really, really hot. If they somehow, some way, Diesel, knock off SMU and Boise State, they go horse hunting to the third round of the postseason, the story, the narrative on James Franklin completely flips in my mind.
I'm not so sure about that.
Really? You went 2 playoff games?
I'm not so sure about that because Penn State fans are at that point where they've had enough. They're not quite as crazy as Ohio State fans because it's nuts to say let's fire Ryan Day for not beating Michigan. I mean, hey, have your standard, right? Your standard is your standard. Nobody can change it and take it away from you. But if you're Penn State and you got this fan base who has a built-in narrative that you do not win big games, they're not looking at SMU and G5 Boise. SMU was a G5 last year, and Boise State, who's still a G5 this year, but not for long because they are moving to the Pac-12. If you can't get through those two teams and then finally beat a team that they respect and fear a little bit in Georgia or whoever it may be, Georgia, Notre Dame, Indiana, I think that seat's still really hot.
See, I don't. I don't. I think if you pull it off against those two, and I'm with you on who they are, and that does matter. But if you win 2 playoff games, I think you've bought yourself some added time to your job title. So it's going to be interesting because it might make them, it might break them for James Franklin. I know the jury's out on what will happen there, but you and I both, Diesel, have him at a 5 out of 10 on the hot seat scale as we're going through and doing a welfare check on these coaches, seeing who's home, who's been fired, who's on the hot seat. Let's go to the NFL. Zach Taylor. I just talked about Zach and the Cincinnati Bengals. Diesel. At the end of the day, I know Jamar Chase has been holding out. I know T. Higgins is going to demand a lot of money. I know you just paid your defensive lineman a ton of money, but you have Joe Burrow. You have some of the best players in the NFL. You should not be 5-8. You should be competing for a Super Bowl year in and year out. I think the seat of Zach Taylor should be at an 8 out of 10, and it's time to make a move, to make a change in Cincinnati and bring in a coach that can have this team in contention year after year.
No, you're not wrong. I mean, you have to be able to make hay while the sun is shining, right? And you've got as many pieces as you're possibly going to have on a team that has made deep runs over the past couple of seasons. Joe Burrow getting hurt notwithstanding, you have to be able to win with this team because, I mean, people of Cincinnati know it can go away from you real quick, and it may be a long time before you get it back.
Yeah.
So you win while you can. Hopefully you can find some pieces to sustain things long-term for another 3, 4, 5 years. But, man, if your head man can't get it done, you got to look elsewhere.
And it was Trey Hendrickson, who I was talking about at defensive line, who is the NFL sack leader at the moment, Diesel. He just got paid. He's about to demand a lot more money. And not to get off on a tangent here, but what we're talking about now is the biggest problem for franchises in the NFL, Diesel. You have Cincinnati and Dallas in 2 very similar situations. You pay your big 3 all of this money, and you have nothing else to disperse. Cowboys pay Micah. You're going to have to pay him. You just paid CD. You paid Dak. Cincinnati, you paid Trey Hendrickson already. You're going to have to pay T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, the holdout, and Joe Burrow. So the moral of the story is in the NFL, you're strapped if you go and pay those top 3 guys. And it's just very interesting how similar the situations are in Dallas and Cincinnati. You don't have a situation like you have in Washington where you have all this money freed up because your roster right now isn't eating up your salary cap.
Yeah, this is the hard part about having so many of these big-time players all with the same very small number of agents. These agents are phenomenal at getting more money out of these franchises. The problem is they've got other dudes on their rosters. I'm talking about both the teams and the agents who they know they're not going to be able to get paid because the team is spending too much money on their biggest stars. I mean, you would hope and you would wish, Cole, that somebody would pull the agents aside, who would pull the players aside and say, hey, what are you really here for? You here to get paid or are you here to win? And still get paid a tremendous amount of money. But if you were willing to take a little bit less, we would have a better team around you. Like, wouldn't you rather get paid and win? Like, what's the difference between making, $8 million a year versus $9 million a year? Would you rather give up that extra $1 million to put another win or 2 on the schedule?
It's wishful thinking. I'm with you. I wish it would happen. I don't think it's going to. But
selfish is what.
Well, it's the market that's told these players what they're worth, and now it's just continuing to climb, and we're never going back. I mean, it is a tough place to be in. You almost have to take I know this sounds crazy.
This is building rosters the NBA way.
Well, this sounds absolutely ludicrous, but you almost have to be in the situation Carolina's in. With a quarterback that's not costing you anything.
Yeah.
You can go build this roster around you, keep a quarterback that sucks, and then one day when you can go get a quarterback that can lead you to a Super Bowl, maybe you can change that. So I'll go Zach Taylor 8 out of 10. I think Zach's got to be gone.
So you're saying you need to build up a great team and then bigger, better deal your quarterback? Sorry, Bryce. We appreciate you getting us to the 10 win.
Yeah,
mark.
well,
we need somebody who can take us to 14.
Adios, Bryce.
Peace.
This one's going to be fun. By the way, Buckeye Mike, who just texted in, I'm sure that he will have something to say about this next one. He says, unless you're Cincy, you don't know it's ownership and idiot GMs, not the coach. Build a dang defense. We support them like no other fan base. And again, Michael, you're not wrong, but I hate to do this to you. We're going to go back to back in Cincy, in Ohio, rather. Ryan Day. You talked about how crazy it would be to fire him, Diesel. Very similar situation with James Franklin. Now, compared to what happens a week and a half from now, is a lot different of a story. I believe if he loses in the first round to Tennessee, Ryan Day will be fired. I believe that. But right now, I think he is at a solid 7 out of 10.
I think you're probably right. I think what did we say about James Franklin sitting at a 5 and could go up tremendously from there or go down just a little bit? Ryan Day, I think Ryan Day spends every day sitting at about an 8.
Yeesh.
And you part your hair wrong, and the Buckeye fans bump you to a 9.
Yeah.
You don't say exactly the right thing in the press conference. They send you to a 10. You're right. I think Ryan Day and the Buckeyes make a first-round exit. He's fired. He's fired. Which makes you say, who is going to be the big winner that hires Ryan Day after that?
As long as they don't play Michigan, they'll be a big winner. But if they play Michigan, then they'll lose.
God, wouldn't you love – I mean, I don't think they have the money for this. But the University of Cincinnati that's been awful with Scott Satterfield. We didn't put him on the list, but I'm sure he's probably sitting at a solid 6 or 7 right now too. Yeah. If Cincinnati went and hired Ryan Day just to throw a middle finger at Ohio State,
it'd be funny.
Oh my God, could you please do that, Cincinnati?
Or if Michigan hired,
do you have the cash?
I think Michigan should hire.
God, if Michigan hires Ryan Day and benches a Herb Street in the same season,
oh my God. Zach says if Ryan Day wins the college football playoff, he'll be fine. But he loses, he's gone no matter what.
If he wins the playoff, he drops from – you got him at a 7 here. If he wins the playoff, I think the best he does is drop to like a 5.
6.5.
6.5. Yeah. I mean,
it's true.
All that matters is whether or not you beat Michigan next year.
It's true. Tyler B says, bye-bye, Ryan Day. Go Vols. Texter from the 803 says.
I think you mean to say nighty-night, Ryan Day.
There you go. Not an Ohio State fan, says the 803, but Ryan Day has won a national championship compared to James Franklin. I don't think he would go anywhere. John Dog, is this week the last week of the Upset Pick Challenge?
No, it's not. Actually, there is no Upset Picks Challenge this week because we only have one game to choose from.
We'd all choose the same game.
We'd all choose the same game, so it wouldn't matter. So this week, take a breath. Say hello to the wife and kids. I'm sure you hadn't seen her since this challenge began. But next week, we will pick back up with the pre-Christmas bowl games. And then the following week, we will do the post-Christmas bowl games.
Ooh.
I also want to get a little closer to these games before we make our selections because there's a lot of guys going into the portal.
That's right.
And a lot of things are changing with these rosters, opt-outs, etc. So that way, as we get a little closer to these games, we'll have a possibly slightly more accurate line because these lines are already up, by the way.
Yeah.
There's already lines up for these bowl games.
All right, next on the welfare check, let's go to Lincoln Riley at Southern Cal. Diesel. Not a good season. I came into the season giving him the benefit of the doubt that they could turn things around. However, they went 6-6, 4-5 in conference. They were behind Washington, Rutgers, Minnesota, Michigan, Iowa. A bad year. Let's just put it that way for Lincoln Riley. Unfortunately, I think the clock's ticking for Lincoln Riley at USC, and I think his seat's getting hot. I'd say again, I think it's about a 6.5 here.
Yeah, it's up there. I mean, Southern Cal has a decent recruiting class coming in. 21 commits, 11 of them are 4-star, 2 of them are 5-star, 13th best class in America. Is that good enough for Southern Cal? Honestly, is that good enough to change the kind of team that Lincoln Riley's been putting on the field? Because
Shouldn't be, right?
That's the problem. He's getting talent. That's not Lincoln Riley's problem. It's putting together a team of dogs. Like, his teams are soft year in and year out, Caleb Williams.
But
Paint your fingernails pink, cuddling with your dog.
Tell me how. Explain to me, Diesel.
Tell me why.
Explain to me how in Southern freaking California, with Lincoln Riley as your head coach, in the era of NIL and era of transfer portal, explain to me how you're not any good. It does not make any sense. Southern Cal should be a mini Oregon. I know Oregon has Nike, but this does not make sense.
Honestly,
to me.
I think the city of LA doesn't care. I don't think the city of LA cares that much about Southern Cal. I genuinely don't. I mean, there's so many shows in town that even if you have a large number, you've got a fan base there who does care. But it's not like everybody jumps on board, right? Like, if you're in Eugene, Oregon, there's nothing else to do in Eugene, Oregon besides cheer for the Ducks. So everybody is there and pulling in one direction. But in Southern California, in LA, you've got how many people live in LA? Like 10 million people. It's gigantic. They're all pulling in different directions. Now, they do have a 5-star quarterback signed. Husan Longstreet, I think is his name.
Okay. Sounds like a fake name, but yeah.
And then they've got a bunch of 4-star guys, 4-star defensive lineman, offensive tackle, linebacker. I mean, they're going nuts and bolts this year with what it is they need. But are any of these dudes dogs?
I don't know, man.
I mean, one of them allowed themselves to get punched in the face by a Notre Dame player. Didn't fight back.
It's just it does not make sense. All right, I have them at a 6.5.
I'll put them at an 8.
All right, Brent Venables, Oklahoma, shaky start, got a big contract before the season. Finished by beating Alabama down the stretch. Diesel, I don't know how Brent Venables is viewed across the nation, but I think Brent Venables is at a solid 5. Maybe 5's too high. Maybe go 4. Let me go 4 for Brent Venables because it's their first year in the SEC. Is 4? Is that okay?
Yeah, probably. At some point, you got to stop making excuses. I mean, Texas didn't need the excuses. Texas is in the playoff in their first year in the SEC. I know they got a little more favorable draw than Oklahoma did.
Yeah.
But you're watching your rivals who you came in with, who you fashion yourselves as equal to, if not better than.
Yeah.
Going off and having great success. Meanwhile, you're sitting at home with a 500 record.
It's crazy.
And their schedule next year is going to be tough. I mean, they got Michigan coming to Norman. Then you've got Texas at a neutral site game, Alabama on the road, Auburn at home, LSU at home, Ole Miss at home, Missouri at home, South Carolina on the road, and Tennessee on the road. So you've got a good thing is that most of your tough games are at home, but you're still going on the road at Tennessee, at South Carolina, and at Alabama. That's tough.
Fat Paid on the text line trying to get us a little jumpy here. He says, thoughts on Lenoris going to Auburn? Fat Paid, good try there. But I don't believe you one bit. So good try. I'll give you that. All right, running out of time. Let's run through these 4 remaining. Mike Norvell, Diesel. Things didn't go well. I think his seat's hot. I think it's at a 6.
I think he's at an 8.
Oh,
I think he's at an 8. Like, look, this is a what have you done for me lately? You got to stop making excuses. He's at an 8. I think Mike Norvell might not make it to the midway point of next season.
Ooh.
If by game number 6, they're not at least 4-2.
Okay. I like that. No, I'm with you. It's Florida State. They expect to win. Doug Peterson, Jacksonville. I'm going to go 8 out of 10. I think it's embarrassing. And
He still has a job?
Does he? Can we confirm? How does he still have a job? That's the question, right? How does he still have a job at Jacksonville?
Yeah.
He shouldn't.
I mean, at some point, the only thing I'm scared of, Cole, is that the Jaguars hire Dave Canales because they want him as a quarterback whisperer to fix Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, that'd be bad. That would be bad. All right, that's Doug Peterson. I'll go 8. 2 more. Mike McCarthy with my Cowboys. I think he's at a solid 6. I don't think he should be fired. I think he's a good coach. I think he would be the scapegoat if he were fired, Diesel, but I don't think this season falls on him. Jerry did not give him the resources needed in the offseason, and I think that's on Jerry more than it is Mike.
Well, I think Mike is at a 1 because he knows it's coming.
Oh,
right? Like he knows he's getting fired at the end of the season. The likelihood of him being retained is very, very low. Or let me rephrase that, re-signed is very, very low. I think Mike knows he's done. And honestly, like if I'm Mike McCarthy, I know that you're at a storied franchise, one of the most recognizable logos in sports history. But at some point I say, you know what? I just want to get the hell away from Jerry Jones. I don't want to be here because he's Mike McCarthy. He's going to get hired somewhere else.
You know what's interesting?
How about Mike McCarthy to Cincinnati Bengals?
I think it'd be a great hire. What's interesting, though, is today on the 10th of December, I think McCarthy's back next year. I think he is. I really do. And I think he should be, by the way. Last one, Brian Daboll, New York Giants. Again, you say he still has a job. It's a disaster. I mean, a total disaster. Now, I think that's the one you look at and say, okay, he's definitely gone, Diesel. I think that thing is 9 out of 10, 10 being the boot that kicks him on the way out.
God, the Giants are just a franchise that seems to be snake bit. You know, I mean, you go back to Hard Knocks and the conversation when they said, let's get rid of our running back. And, it's not worth keeping him. And then he goes on to have a great season in Philly. And I don't know how you keep him. I think he's at a solid 9.
No, I'm with you. It's hot. It's really, really hot, even though it's cold in New York. Texter says Orders on has a job because Trevor's hurt. Texter, I'm sorry. I think
he means Peterson.
Oh, okay. Has a job because that's a terrible excuse if that's the case.
His autocorrect really took a hold of that and did something really weird.
I thought he was trying to say Ed Orgeron.
Orders on.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea there.
That's funny.
But there's your welfare check.
There you go. That's your welfare check here on December 10th, 2024, Cole. When we come back, there was a really fascinating conversation on Crane & Company. We bring on Jake Crane fairly regularly on this show. And he's he's saying that the SEC coaches and ADs like Shane Beamer, like Lane Kiffin, like Alabama's AD, they're bitching and moaning about the wrong things. That's next. We'll talk about it. Cole, do you know what South Carolina, Alabama, and Ole Miss's combined out-of-conference record is or was in 2024?
South Carolina, Ole Miss, and Alabama's combined out-of-conference record.
Yeah. I'll make it easy for you. Give you the answer if you want it.
Yeah, it takes me a while.
Undefeated.
I was going to say close to one loss.
Undefeated. So tell me why Greg Byrne, the AD at Alabama, Shane Beamer at South Carolina, Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, et cetera, are out there complaining about their strength of schedule being too difficult, and we're just going to schedule softer in the out-of-conference. We're not going to schedule Wisconsin anymore. We're not going to schedule Duke anymore. We're not going to schedule tough teams out of conference anymore. You went undefeated. What you did in out-of-conference this year has no bearing whatsoever on why your teams are not in the college football playoff. And they're saying to themselves, well, we got to schedule wins. We got to schedule wins to make sure that we can get into the playoff. But you didn't lose any of those games. Like, you're mad at the wrong thing this year. And just when you try to change your schedule to make it as easy as possible, look out, Group of Five, they're coming for you. The argument's going to shift, and all of a sudden, now you're not scheduling hard enough. And it'll be something you did to yourselves by not scheduling anyone at all out of conference. And who gets hurt by all of this? The fans. The fans that want to see your team play somebody with a pulse to start the season.
Yeah.
Like, what? I thought these were supposed to be like the fiercest competitors in the program. Yeah. I thought these were supposed to be the hardest nosed, toughest minded, eat nails for breakfast, crap thunder, hard SOBs. And all of a sudden you're like, you know what? We'd rather play South Alabama. We'd rather schedule Southern Miss, who checks notes won one game this year. Like, come on. How soft can you be as the head of a football program?
So I think Beamer, and again, I don't know exactly what his intention was. I think he was making it clear with his complaints with the selection process on how clear or how unclear, right, the criteria that the selection committee has, Diesel, and what they're basing their decisions on. Beamer, I understand his point, but I also hear you in the sense of it's not like they lost any of those non-conference games.
In what way is win your conference and you're in the playoff unclear? That is as clear as it could possibly be. Win your conference and you're in.
Yeah, and again, he talked about it. He said inconsistencies of what's important is the biggest problem. Then he went on to talk about when he was also mentioning the schedule. He said injuries were a factor. Last year, Florida State got left out. I know there were only 4 teams compared to 12, but apparently injuries weren't a factor this season when you look at quarterback situation when he gets hurt on the last play of the game. I think Beamer, I'm with you on the out-of-conference schedule. I think his biggest complaint was the Jordan Travis injury last year having weight to the committee, and then Lenora Sellers being hurt in the second half against LSU, not having weight. I would, again, I can't read his brain. I can't read his mind, but I would assume, Diesel, that was his biggest complaint. The strength of schedule, it is what it is. You can't change, to your point, you can't change the conference games. You can't change who you play and you know what year you play Georgia compared to what year you don't. So I understand that.
A very interesting point was brought up on Crane and Company, and this is where this topic comes from. So credit to them and that conversation that they had. There's been a push, Cole, to advance to 9 conference games in the SEC.
Correct.
To make your strength of schedule so good that there's no doubt that if you win enough games, you're in, right? Well, by this logic, if you're mad that your schedule is too tough, you need to play fewer conference games. Because what difference does it make?
Yeah.
You're already perceived as the best conference in college football. If you drop from 8 to 7, and so now you have one additional FCS sacrificial lamb, I know you can't put more than one on the and count it for bowl eligibility. I know that. I'm just making a point here. So instead of playing Nicholls State and Furman, you play Furman and Coastal Carolina. You're still going to beat them by 40. What's the damn difference, right? So what you're really mad at, Shane, Greg, Lane Kiffin, you're mad that your conference schedule is too hard. You're mad that there's inconsistency in the strength of schedule within your own conference. Well, you guys voted to let Texas and Oklahoma in. You guys voted to let powerhouses into your conference. I told you this years ago before you even got into this situation, that you were going to have to get used to losing a couple more games more than what you're used to losing. It's just a fact.
Yeah.
If you keep putting the best possible teams in your conference that you can, not everybody can go 10-1 in your conference. Not in your on your schedules. Not everybody can go 8-0 in a conference slate. It is mathematically impossible.
I think, Diesel, what the committee set, the precedent that the committee set was less about strength of schedule and more about number of wins and number of losses as well.
That's your problem. You think there's precedent. There's no precedent here.
No, I think the precedent they're setting this year is what I'm saying.
But that's the committee has never said, here's precedent and here's how we're going to do things going forward. It's always been, we can change these rules whenever we want to. There's no such thing as precedent. And so many people keep getting hung up on this word precedent when that doesn't exist.
No, I think you're not hearing what I'm saying. Going forward, I think there will be precedent that if you lose 3 games, there's no way you get in. They showed that this year, that Clemson's the only team in the playoff that's lost 3 games, and the only reason they're in is because they won their conference. I think the number of wins and losses is more important than strength of schedule. I think you'll continue to see year after year that if you go 10-2, you're in 12-team playoff. I don't know when it expands to 16, yeah, whatever. But if you go 10-2, I think every year, Diesel, if you're 10-2 and you play excluding Army or Navy, you play the schedule that matters, you're going to be in. If you lose 3 games, I don't know that you'll see a 3-loss team in the postseason unless they're in a conference champions.
So then why are these coaches and athletic directors not calling up Greg Sankey and the scheduling office as soon as the season is done and saying, whoa, why are you putting so many top 15 teams on our schedule? This is not fair. We're going to lose 4 games next year, and we're going to be left out of the college football playoff. And you know what the scheduling office is going to say? Well, you voted them in.
Yeah, you got to win. You got to win the game.
You got to play somebody.
Yeah, you do. And like, I'm not giving them an out.
If you had half a brain, you would have said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to invite Duke. They're terrible at football. They're a sacrificial lamb. We're all going to beat Duke, but they're going to make us look really good in basketball. It's flawed logic to say we are intentionally going to make our out-of-conference schedules weaker.
Yeah.
When you didn't lose any out-of-conference games this year at all 3 of you combined, so that we lose fewer games. You're not losing out-of-conference games.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
You're none of you are playing juggernaut out-of-conference schedules anyway. Like, how much weaker can it get?
Texter says the problem is the leagues are so big now that one team can have a super easy SEC schedule and another team can have a super hard SEC schedule. The issue is with conference schedule.
So there we get to the meat of the issue. How do we normalize or equalize conference scheduling?
Divisions.
Well, I mean, that's one way, but you have to be able to, on a whim, change divisions because, I mean, you know as well as I do, in the mid-2000s, the SEC East was dominant. It was Tennessee and it was Florida. And then those programs fell off and everything shifted to the West.
Yeah.
Because prior to that, schools out West said, hey, it's not fair. It's not fair. They're too good over there. We're never going to get a chance to win. And then Nick Saban signs a contract to go be the head coach at Alabama. All of a sudden, the SEC West is this gauntlet. And teams in the East are saying, it's not fair. An East team is never going to win this thing. So you got to be able to shift and move these schedules around so that as best as you can try, because we are living in a world where all these programs are built on sand, because guys can leave in the portal anytime they want. Coaches can leave for another job anytime they want. And things just happen. The schedule goes awry. So you can try to say, all right, we're going to try to give everybody an average opponent ranking of, let's call it 35.
Yeah.
Our goal is to make sure everybody has a strength of record equal to about the 35th best schedule in the conference or in the country. And all right, now you're relatively equal.
Texter says Alabama had a really easy out-of-conference schedule, and outside of Clemson, South Carolina never plays the good out-of-conference team. Texter from the 803, Gamecock fan here. Yes, don't schedule Old Dominion anymore. Texter says also, bet Notre Dame wish they had a schedule or wish they'd schedule more cupcake games. Northern Illinois was rough. Before we run to a break, let's go to the phones, 844-326-3663. Harold in Greenville wants to weigh in. What's up, Harold?
This y'all, listen, do me a favor. Quit talking about Shane Beamer and this, listen. You make your bed, you lie in it. Now, the defensive player of the year for South Carolina is the one that cost him the loss against LSU. And that's Kennard making that 13th penalty. He hadn't done that, South Carolina would be in the playoffs to this day, barring even the Alabama game. But Shane Beamer, listen, all I want to hear about him is come, New Year's Day, the week leading up to that Illinois game. Let him, then let's get to talking about it. I don't want to hear Shane Beamer. I mean, I didn't think he's the right hire, but that's what he's done this year. I think he's the right fit and what he can do. But I'm so sick of this stuff, Shane Beamer. I'm just tired of the playoffs. The way you ain't gonna change it. The way they did it, you're gonna have to cope with that. Like I said, I probably won't be around here, to be honest with you, because I'll be 80 years old next year.
Harold, you're winning the upset picks challenge next year. You got to stick around.
That's right.
Listen,
yeah, you already called it.
Listen, it's gonna take 81 to beat me, because I'm gonna win. I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna have 80 points next year.
All right,
there you
Harold,
go. Thanks for the call,
good
Harold.
luck to you. An interesting point was made by David Cohn on that show. He said, why not mandate, if you want to be in the college football playoff, you have to schedule 10 power conference opponents. And then what are they going to do? They're going to schedule the worst. They're going to schedule Maryland. You're going to see Alabama play in Maryland, Rutgers, and Baylor out of conference.
Joy.
We played 10.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. All right. Only 4 weeks left of the NFL regular season. What's the NFL playoff picture look like as of right now? Who do we like to make a run? Your thoughts on the 4 weeks remain in the NFL. We'll get into that next. The NFL season is, oh my goodness, almost biased just like that. Diesel, 4 weeks remain. What a sad time it is. However, the Week 15 playoff picture has been announced in terms of who needs to do what. And there are some teams that are in some serious, serious trouble. So as we get here to Week 15 playoff scenarios, let us know on the text line who you like to win the whole freaking thing, as they say. But in the AFC, here are the teams that have clinched. The Buffalo Bills, 10-3, they've clinched. They won the AFC East. Kansas City Chiefs, 12-1, they clinched the West. Houston, who plays Miami on Sunday, can clinch the AFC South division title with a Houston win and an Indianapolis loss. Pittsburgh Steelers, 10-3 at the Philadelphia Eagles. Pittsburgh clinches a playoff berth with a Pittsburgh tie or win, a Miami loss or a tie, plus an Indiana loss or a tie. In the NFC, the two teams that have clinched are the Lions, who are 12-1, and the Eagles, who are 11-2. The Packers at Seahawks. The Packers will clinch a playoff berth with a Green Bay win and an Atlanta loss or tie, and a San Francisco tie. The Minnesota Vikings, 11-2 versus the Bears, 4-9 Monday Night Football. Minnesota will clinch a playoff berth with a Minnesota win or a tie, a LA loss or a tie, and a Seattle loss or a tie. The Eagles will clinch the NFC East with a Philadelphia win and a Washington loss or tie. Diesel, that is the Week 15 playoff scenario. I love the parity in the NFL, even though you have Patrick Mahomes on this 10th day of December. I don't know truly if there's an odds-on favorite of who you could put a lot of money on and hit in terms of who's going to win it all. I think this race down the stretch is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We still have a lot of big stars, especially young quarterbacks who are still in this thing. C.J. Stroud with the Texans still in, Jaden Daniels with the Commanders, Bo Nix with the Broncos. I mean, it's getting hard to pick who the best rookie quarterback, who the best young quarterback in the NFL is right now between Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix. Both of them have their team in deep contention. You look at this by week number 5. I mean, it seemed very clear that Jaden Daniels is going to be the best quarterback in this class. Bo Nix has made himself a case there. Really interesting scenarios coming down the pike, man. And the fact that, what we talked about earlier with the Carolina Panthers playing well against teams that have clinched their divisions or clinched their playoff spots and teams that are very much in the hunt to make the playoffs. I mean, the Buccaneers have a 71% chance to make the playoffs right now. The Carolina Panthers took them to the wire, needed a late second field goal to get that one done. That's certainly a positive for that team. Sure. And what's wild, Cole, is according to this, I know that they're all but eliminated, but according to this, the Carolina Panthers are still on the bubble.
The bubble was close to bursting, but
less than a 1% chance. Less than a 1% chance of making it there.
I'll tell you what's interesting, Diesel. There are 5 teams that missed the NFL postseason last year: Denver, LA, Minnesota, Seattle, and Washington. 5 teams that missed the postseason that are all in playoff positions entering Week 15. Since 1990, a streak of 34 consecutive seasons, at least 4 teams every season have qualified for the playoffs after failing to make the postseason the year before. That's super interesting. But I think when you look at the storylines this weekend, Buffalo, Detroit's obviously very intriguing. The Lions already have a franchise record, 11 consecutive games, and lead the NFL with 32.1 points per game. The Bills are second in scoring offense. We talked about Philadelphia earlier, and JD brought up the news with their locker room. Even though they won Sunday in Carolina, still some riffraff going on. But I'll tell you what, man, as we get to this point in the NFL season, I love the playoff positioning. Again, I think the biggest takeaway for me is when you enter the NFL playoffs, Diesel, we're talking football. We're talking X's and O's. We're not talking who should be in. We're not talking who should be out. We're not talking about who got it wrong and who. We're talking football. The NFL is the perfect playoff scenario in my mind, the perfect playoff system, and I love that.
So what you're saying is you want wins and losses, just the number of wins and losses, straight wins and losses, to matter on how you set up a playoff.
Well, I think you can do that in the NFL because of the number of teams. You just can't do that, in college. In college football, that's the problem.
Unless you split off a division of the top Power 4 teams and you shrink the number of teams that you're talking about, I guess.
Yeah, there'd be some serious shrinkage. All right, here is some breaking news from Zach Wofford on the YouTube stream. I did confirm it on Twitter, and I'm not going to read it. I don't like it. It's not good breaking news. But breaking news as of right now, the New York Yankees have signed Max Fried, former Atlanta Brave, to an 8-year, $218 million contract. Max Fried is now a New York Yankee.
That hurts. That hurts if you're a Braves fan. You let him get away.
We knew it.
Yeah.
We knew. I said it all season. It was the last year for Max. It sucks.
How do you even approach replacing him?
You don't. Not him. I mean, it's just that's tough, man. And again, it's a good problem to have, Diesel, because you gave Max Fried the opportunity to win a World Series, and the Braves don't win a World Series without him. However, he's so good. He commanded so much money, and we knew it was coming, but it still hurts. 8 years, $218 million. Congratulations to Max Fried.
Yeah, I mean, and he stayed. He played 8 seasons with the Atlanta Braves. I know he didn't play much this season, but still, he was with the Braves for 8 years. You got a lot of good work.
Like I said, you don't win a World Series without him.
That's true. When we come back, Cole, let's jump back into this conversation about the Carolina Panthers and the upward trajectory that it feels like they are on. We replay our conversation from earlier with David Newton of ESPN next. You know, Cole, it feels weird to talk about a 3-10 football team who's lost 3 straight games in a row and say that we actually have a lot of hope about their future and the trajectory of this team. But that is absolutely true about the Carolina Panthers, something that I did not expect that I would be saying at any point in the season. 2 straight wins against New Orleans and New York, and then 3 one-possession losses against 3 of the best teams in the NFL. We go to the phone lines right now, bring in David Newton of ESPN, covers the Carolina Panthers, to talk about it. David, how improbable is this turn of events over the last 5 weeks that we've seen from these Carolina Panthers? I can't imagine that, you know, after week 3 or 4 of the season, you thought you'd be writing hopeful stories about this team either.
Yeah, it's about as improbable as the starting quarterback getting in a car accident and Bryce Young coming back and looking like the top pick of the 2023 draft should.
You're right, but it did happen, David. As to Diesel's point, there is positivity. You know, when you talk about Sunday's game, man, against Philadelphia, I watched that game, and that was a heartbreaker at the very end there with Xavier Legette, David, having the opportunity to take the lead and a ball that he thought he thought he caught at the moment. Obviously, replay showed that it did hit the ground. Do you view Xavier Legette and the drops he's had as a serious issue, or do you think that's something he'll continue to learn from in his days in the NFL?
Well, he's still a rookie, and rookies make mistakes, as we all know, and I think he'll grow from them, and he'll get better from them. I mean, he's had a hand injury. I know the coach said that really had no factor in the drop or the drops he's had lately, but you know, again, it was a big moment for Bryce. It was a big moment for Legette. Had it gone the other way, our conversation really would have been different. The last couple of weeks, there have been a couple of plays like that. If you look at it, Adam Thielen had a ball, and he felt like he did catch it in bounds 2 weeks ago against Tampa Bay. But as he reminded, had he made the catch the first time because he had to take a second stab at the ball, then there would have been no question about that. So even veterans, you know, have mistakes out there and cost teams games. So yeah, I think there's just a lot of positivity going around right now. Most of it centers around Bryce Young, and that's kind of why I said that as improbable as Andy Dalton getting in a car wreck, and all of a sudden now Bryce has been resurrected and looking like a good quarterback again, because who would have ever guessed that would have happened?
Yeah, David, I was in the stadium for that game against Tampa, and it sure as hell looked like a catch to me. Even on replay, it looked like a catch to me. Looking straight down that sideline, I thought he had it. I can't believe that call got overturned, I believe, or upheld the way that it was. I mean, and to your point, Bryce Young's putting the ball on the money. You remember weeks 2, 3, 4, he was sailing passes. He was throwing him in the dirt. He was kind of all over the place. I've remarked that Bryce has kind of stopped treating playing quarterback in the NFL like it's a homework assignment. You know, this idea that I'm supposed to be smarter, that I'm supposed to outthink everybody, that I'm supposed to be so precise. Well, he stopped playing that way. He's out there having fun, and he's creating with his feet. Would you agree with that assessment? And you know, how have you seen Bryce's demeanor change in these past 4 or 5 weeks? Early season, man, he looked like he was on the verge of tears half the time.
Yeah, and I think a part of it is, you know, during the time he was sitting and watching Andy Dalton, he didn't know if he was going to get another chance. I asked Canales the other day, yesterday, I said, if that car wreck had not happened, you know, what would we be looking at right now? And he kind of looked at me and said, you know, that it would be interesting to know because we don't know what really would have happened right there. So I know they were wanting to go with Andy a lot longer because they felt like they could be in contention for the division if they could win a few games and not get totally, you know, left behind. But again, going back to Bryce, he's kind of got a nothing to lose attitude out there, and he's just letting the ball rip, playing, having fun. The smile is back on his face. That's good to see. He's confident in his offensive line, and he can step up in the pocket. He's being really decisive. I mean, the decisive part, I think, is the one you can't overlook, not just on his throws, but on his runs. I mean, when he sees the play's not there, he doesn't hesitate to put his head down and take off. He's still got to learn to slide a little better, but he's just all around looking more like Alabama Bryce Young than he did, last year's Bryce Young.
David, does his improvement in your mind change the conversations from what the future is at quarterback to maybe a secure future with Bryce Young?
Yeah, because I don't think they really had an idea what was going to happen. I mean, they still haven't come out and said, hey, Bryce can be our franchise quarterback. I've pushed as much as I can on that, but they do seem to feel that Bryce, they could go in the next season with Bryce and either Andy Dalton or another veteran quarterback and be in pretty good shape. So I think Bryce has given them enough confidence where they can move forward with him and not worry about drafting another quarterback or even trading Bryce. I think the worst thing they probably would do is to trade Bryce Young, particularly the way he's playing right now, because if he goes on to be what everybody thought he could be coming out of college, then they look really bad.
David, to that point, where is Andy Dalton in his desire to stay with this team for another year? Do you believe he'll be on the roster as a Carolina Panther again in 2025?
He wants to stay. He told me he wants to stay. If the team, sees that he can be that guy that could, kind of still be a mentor and still be a guy that could come in and help them win games after if Bryce were to get hurt or struggle some, I think he definitely would be here next year.
David Newton, ESPN, joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. David, you have covered football in general for a while. In your years of experience, how does a team that is out of playoff contention find ways to motivate the team and staff week in and week out down the stretch like the situation we're in now?
Well, I mean, you've seen it throughout, especially with this team, going back to some of the Ron Rivera years. The first few years he was with the team with Cam Newton as the quarterback, they won 6 games their first year, but they finished strong. They didn't win many the first part of the year. They did the same thing the second year when they came on strong towards the end and won 7 games, and that ultimately propelled them to that 2013 season when they went 12-4 and won the division, and ultimately got them ready for that 2015 run to the Super Bowl. So players are playing for their contract. They're playing for playing time next year. They're playing for, again, put food on the table for their family, because if they go out there and don't compete and don't play hard, that'll show up on tape real fast, and the staff will look at that going into the next season. I know when other coaches have come in here the last few years, some of them have said specifically they go back and look at the tape of the last 4 games of the season just to see how hard players are playing, to see who they wanted to keep around.
He covers the Carolina Panthers for ESPN NFL Nation. David Newton joining us here on the Fan Upstate. Anish Shroff made a really good point immediately after the game Sunday, saying first you lose big, then you lose small, then you win small, then you win big. And it feels like the Carolina Panthers are right there in between that lose small, win small spot on that scale. How is the locker room taking the position where they are right now? From the interviews that you've done, are the players encouraged even though they're losing games the way they have the last 3 weeks, or are they discouraged by the losses?
I think they're encouraged. I mean, there are no moral victories out there for them, but they realize that they're getting closer to being who they want to be, and they realize that there's still some pieces missing, especially on the defensive side. And if they can get that turned around and get that just imagine that they kept some of the pieces from last year's defense and been healthy and not lost players like Derrick Brown, in the first game, where this unit might be. So I think they realize that the tide's starting to turn, but if they slack off or if they don't stay focused and play as hard as they can, then it can turn back the other way real fast.
David, you mentioned a few minutes ago about players playing for their jobs down the stretch. In your mind, who are some of those players that may be on the line that could be back next year, but also you'd put a question mark or an asterisk beside their name? And of those, who do you think the Panthers should retain?
That's a good question. I think some of the defensive players for sure. They're going to make some changes on that defense because they just got to. They got to do some upgrades there. I don't want to call any specific names right now because I don't think there's anybody that's really not playing well. I think the cornerback position opposite J.C. Horn, I think those guys like Michael Jackson and people like that, their jobs could be on the line. I think most of the starting offensive line, you still got to look at Vicky, the guy that can be the left tackle. He's playing a lot better this year, so I think not that his job's on the line, but there's still something to prove for him. So Bryce Young, I mean, his job's still on the line. I mean, if he slacks off and doesn't play well in one game, people can go back to saying, well, he's back to being what he was last year and early this season. So again, nobody on this team is that good to where they can't be out there trying to prove themselves and think that, like, their job's on the line. Maybe Chuba Hubbard's the only one right now because he's having a really good season and gotten over 1,000 yards and looking like a smart move to go ahead and give him an extension when they did.
Yeah, and to that point, the running back position, just brutal to have Worthy go down the way that he did. He'd only been back for, 3-4 games? And to tear an ACL in a game like that, that's tough to watch. In your mind, that's got to be a key position that they want to go after somebody, second round maybe in the 25 draft next year?
That'll be interesting because, I mean, my guess would be that it's probably going to be at least middle of next season before Brooks is ready to return. I mean, he took 12 months to get ready after, this last, his first knee injury that he hurt at Texas. So I got to imagine it's usually longer recovery for the second one, especially on the same knee. So I got to imagine that they're probably not banking on him for next season, probably the next season after that. So whether they'll use that high of a draft pick on there. I mean, they still got Miles Sanders under contract. They can use him as a backup. The money might be a factor what they want to do there. But, that's definitely a position they've got to build some depth around behind Chuba.
David, you have colleagues, obviously, that cover other teams in the National Football League. When you look at the Panthers' rebuild with Canales and Dan Morgan and them trying to get back to relevancy, who do you compare this organization to? I mean, you see a team not far north from Charlotte with Dan Quinn, who have had a very, very quick rebuild in year one, obviously have tapered off a little bit from the start that they had. But who would you compare the resurgence to when you talk about what ifs for the Carolina Panthers?
I don't know if there's another team this year that you'd compare them to as much as you could look back at the 2002 team in Carolina. They were coming off that 1-15 season in 2001. Dan Morgan was a player on that. They won 7 games, I believe, that next year. And the next year they were in the Super Bowl, and they did it by building the way that Dan's trying to build right now. And I think that's kind of the model that he's using. You want to find tough physical guys that are, as he calls them, their dogs, and try to put enough skilled players around the quarterback to be successful. I mean, that team had Steve Smith on it, Muhsin Muhammad. It had you added Jake Delhomme in 23, and it really took off because he was not a great quarterback, but he was a really steady quarterback that could win games and not lose them for you.
David, Cole and I have a bet based on the results of Sunday's Cowboys-Panthers game. He's a diehard Dallas Cowboy fan. He's wearing the star right now, which should be illegal in this market. But the loser has to let the winner use face paint and paint the logo of the winning team on their forehead while we do the following show. Who's going to be looking like the idiot with the logo on the forehead?
Well, the good thing you're on radio, so nobody's really going to see it.
Well, we're on a live video stream too.
Okay, well, sorry about that. I apologize for missing that point. So I think either one of you has got a logo on your forehead is going to look pretty bad. So, this is interesting. The Panthers, I don't know if you saw the story I put up today. They haven't been favored in the game since 2022. 33 straight games they've been underdogs. They're a favorite right now against the Cowboys. And so a 2-point favorite. I don't think they're going to fall out of the favorite role. It'd be a big fall to go from 2 up to 1 down. So, the last time they were a favorite was back in 22, and they were favored against Pittsburgh at home, and they lost that game. So, I don't know. I can't really make a prediction on this one. I mean, I think Dallas has still got enough pieces where they can be dangerous. The Panthers may play down to their competition. If the Dallas is playing down to Dallas, that kind of says where things are right there, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. David, my last question for you. Your thoughts on what has been rumored for a former NFL coach and Bill Belichick possibly heading to the college level to take the North Carolina Tar Heels job?
Yeah, that's quite a turn of events. I didn't see that coming at all. And, the rumors you hear or the stories you read about, he's kind of setting up his son maybe to be the coach after him. I don't know if that's going to be the case or not, but to me, it shows just how much he missed being on the sideline and missed being around the locker room, and he wants to go out there and prove himself. It just still feels really odd. The guy, as close as he is to being the all-time winningest coach in the NFL, would go to the college ranks at the age of 72 because, if he wants to get back and get Don Shula's record, he's going to have to get back to the NFL. And winning games at North Carolina is not going to qualify him for that. So I find the whole thing kind of bizarre from both standpoints, from North Carolina's standpoint and from Belichick. But I think, again, it shows just how hungry both are to get out there and prove themselves.
David, great stuff as always. We appreciate your time each and every time you join us right here on the Fan Upstate, and we look forward to talking to you again soon, man.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
That's David Newton of ESPN. Diesel, what a stat. 32 straight games the Panthers have been underdogs.
Yeah.
I'm looking for his article on that now. I didn't know that, and I didn't see that until he said it. So that is just astronomical. That's a long time.
Cole, when did Dak Prescott go down? After what game or during which game? Do you remember off the top of your head?
No, I don't. Not off the top of my head. It's been such a horrible,
trying to figure out
season.
Because the Cowboys are 4-2 on the road this season. Carolina Panthers are 2-5 at home. Now, obviously, the script has kind of flipped on both of these teams over the past 6-7 weeks or so. So I'm trying to figure out with Dallas how many of those wins came after Dak Prescott got injured.
Maybe a couple.
Because their most recent away games, they won on the road at Washington 34-26, and then at the Falcons 27-21. Lost at the Falcons, lost at the 49ers. And then you go back to that, you're back to week number 4 against the Steelers. And I know Dak was still there, was still active at the time. But, man, that's tough. And this whole Belichick thing, trying to set up his son to be the next head coach, it feels a little Game of Thronesy, doesn't it?
It's interesting.
It's like you're trying to put into contract and codify that your son will be taken care of as a head coach in a couple of years from now.
We're gonna get into that at 6:20 right here on the Fan Upstate. So stay tuned for that, the Bill Belichick discussion. I did find the article though, Diesel, on ESPN.com by David Newton, and the first time since 2022, the Carolina Panthers are a favorite. Oh, my word. That was a 33 straight game streak as underdogs.
Would that have been with Baker?
Maybe so. Maybe so. The sixth longest, by the way, that 33 straight game streak, that 33 straight streak as an underdog was the sixth longest by any team since the 1970 merger, and the longest streak for the Carolina Panthers in franchise history of being the underdog, the longest drought since the 2012-2014 Jaguars. So as of right now, to David's point, they're 2-point favorites against the 5-8 Cowboys, who my worry is, Diesel, after last night, they're automatically eliminated, or they're officially eliminated from playoff contention. I'm worried now. I don't know what they'll have to play for. So that is my biggest worry. And I do feel a cold coming on next Monday. I don't know if I'll be here or not.
Well, we can do it on Tuesday. And, Cole, they're playing on one day's less rest.
Yeah, true.
The Carolina Panthers will be, and they're on the road. If this was a game at Dallas, then we'd be talking about a different story. You know, you're not traveling, you're not losing a day for travel. But they played last night. They got to be ready to play again in 6 days. One of those days is going to be a travel day. So they've got 5 days to get ready for this team.
And here's a crazy stat for you before we run to a break. We're talking about Bryce Young. You know, we talked about Bryce with David Newton. of ESPN just a few minutes ago, Diesel, Bryce Young had a 9.9 QBR the first two games. 9.9.
Not 39.9?
No. 9.9,
Sure?
which was by far the worst,
checked.
right? He was then benched for Andy Dalton. David mentioned the car wreck. Since week 9, Bryce Young ranks 13th in the NFL.
Wow.
13th in total QBR at 60, which isn't bad.
That is fascinating. That
It really
he's
is.
been able to come back and change the way he plays. You know, I mean, who knows? What did somebody say in his ear? What did somebody whisper in his ear and say, hey, just go play loose, man. Play free. Stop thinking so much. Just throw the ball.
If Bryce Young and the Panthers
Believe in the ball.
remain,
Throw yourself.
Diesel, if they remain favorites against Dallas and cover, it'll be the first time they've done that since September 23rd, 2021, when they defeated the Texans 24-9 as a 9-point favorite to David's point. Last time they were favorites, it was against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they lost that game. So I'll be there. I'm not excited about the game at all because I think they're going to lose, but who knows?
Where'd you get tickets from?
The same place you got tickets from.
Oh. Did you get a good number of them? Am I holding up the right number of tickets?
Yes.
All right.
That's correct. I was going to go cover the game just so I could go for free, but it ended up working out. So
I can't go because it's a 1:00 game. I'll be at Dave & Buster's on Woodruff Road in Greenville. Come and join me from 1 to 2 on Sunday. Dave & Buster's Woodruff Road. We'll get you hooked up with a free $10 power-up play card if you're one of the first 10 that gets there and comes to see me.
Brian says Cole needs to go to the game on the Facebook stream. Brian, sadly, I am. I have to go watch it in person. All right, Diesel, we are 11 days out, 11 days away from Clemson, Texas. We haven't gotten into this conversation yet today, but I posted this on the Facebook page earlier at the Fan Upstate, and I posed the question, and then the very next segment to all the Clemson fans out there listening, how are you feeling? Deez, we got to get into this. This has to be discussed. It's a simple question. To you, to the Tolos, stream, texters, callers, Facebook, Twitters, Instagrammers, everybody out there. Is Bill Belichick really a good fit at the college level? Because I'm just not so sure that old Bill's making the right decision here. It's rumored that Bill Belichick may be the next coach at North Carolina. I heard a very interesting report yesterday, Diesel, that no one in the NFL wanted him. And just a few years removed from a Super Bowl, still arguably the best coach ever, nobody wants you. I find that strange, but do you think he'd be a good fit in Chapel Hill?
Hell no. People who are getting paid don't even want to be around him. Why would somebody who's choosing where they want to go to school for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, why would they choose to hang out with Bill Belichick? Like, the only thing that would make this tolerable, it would make me want to go, is if the Bill Belichick we saw in press conferences throughout his entire tenure in New England was just not him, right? Like, we've seen interviews with Bill where he appears to be a normal human being who can actually have a conversation with you.
And on the Pat McAfee show, he's great.
Yeah, he's great. If we got that Bill, fun-loving Bill, I think it has a chance to be successful. I mean, that Bill is great. We had an engineer around here for a while. I think I've told the story on the show before. We had an engineer who worked here for years and years and years.
Did you punch him?
No, he would have exploded into a poof of dust. Extremely smart guy.
Okay.
Inside this building, total jerk. Outside of the building, nice as could possibly be.
Okay.
Like, I don't know what goes through somebody's mind to be two completely different people, depending on whether you're at work or you're not at work. When you're coaching the Patriots versus when you're on television having a good time. I can't figure that out.
No, I can't either, and I'm getting some audio together now that I had pulled, and I've got it on the way from Bill Belichick as he was talking on the Pat McAfee show, Diesel, of what a program would look like if he were the coach at North Carolina. Here's my question, though, Diesel. He's a good coach. There's nobody that's questioning that. He knows how to win games. There's nobody that's questioning that. However, does Bill Belichick have any idea about the Southeast recruiting hotbed? Does he have any idea about the transfer portal? Does he have any idea about NIL? Does he know how to recruit players? I think he'd be a good coach. I think he'd be a good little GM in college football. But I just don't know that he has a pulse on college football when it comes to how to win.
Well, he would be that CEO type of coach, right? He would be that guy who thinks that he could pull basically anyone he wants to come work with him at UNC. Hey, I'm going to run things. I'm going to essentially be a pseudo athletic director.
You know who it'd be like? And again, not making a comparison, but it'd be similar to Paul Maneri at South Carolina, the new baseball coach.
Yeah.
Hadn't coached in a while, sitting on his couch, doesn't know the portal, doesn't know Southeast, doesn't know NIL.
Yeah, he would have to hire some brilliant minds, but the question is, who does he know in the college ranks? I mean, I have no doubt that he has a tremendous list of contacts that are brilliant coaches in the NFL, but this is a completely different ball game.
It is. It is. Here's the audio of what a program under Bill Belichick would look like.
That would have the ability to have the opportunity to compete in the National Football League. Whether they're good enough or not, I don't know, but they would be ready for it.
Bill,
so they'd be ready for it. He goes on to talk about how it would be a pipeline to the NFL, and that'd be a big part of what his program would look like in terms of getting players ready, having the same nutrition, the same workouts, tailoring them to the NFL, and that's all fine and dandy. I just think when you look at it from a point of if you're not – when you look at it from a place, Diesel, of Dabo Swinney, other coaches in college football, if you're not staying up to date with times in the sport, you're going to be left behind. And my you answered the question. My thoughts, my opinion is no. I don't think he'd be a good fit. I think it'd be a 2 to 3 year experiment. I've heard, maybe he's setting his son up. Diesel to be the next coach. I think it'd be a horrible decision, not only for Bill, but also for North Carolina. Or in my mind, and I know this might get pushed back, you already set yourself back with letting Mac Brown stay as long as you did. You set your program back.
Yeah.
You'd be setting your program back even more by hiring Bill. I know that sounds crazy to say, but I do believe that.
It feels like a publicity stunt. Hiring Bill Belichick to be the head coach of your college team is a publicity stunt because
what's your name? What are you calling?
In what way is he remotely prepared to handle all of the off-field side of college football coaching? He's not.
No, he's not. And again, publicity stunt aside, you're right. The opportunity, it almost feels as if North Carolina's sitting back there doing this. Like, oh my God, we get to hire Bill Belichick. Oh my word, we're free. We maybe get to. I get it. He's the best ever when it comes to the NFL. I just don't know that doesn't always translate to another level. Pete Carroll was an interesting example there.
John Gruden was a coach that literally everyone wanted, college and pro.
Yeah. So, Tolos, let us know what you think when it comes to Bill Belichick. 844-FAN phone. Kevin from Gaffney wants to chime in on the conversation. Kevin, what's up, man?
Hey, Bill Belichick, Clemson fan here. I'm just trying to take my orange goggles off for a second.
Good job.
I think North Carolina should have went after Jamie Chadwell at Liberty. That's just my opinion. Of course, Bill Belichick is who knows? Putting this guy in a college situation, I think he's going to have success. I think he's going to draw players and recruits, and I think he's going to work the portal like an NFL free agency market. And North Carolina is an attractive school to get players, but just my opinion, I think this is a short-term fix. Long-term fix, Jamie Chadwell, Liberty, former Coastal guy, program builder, but that's just my opinion. So I'll drop off and let you talk about it.
Kevin, before you go there, let's just pretend for the sake of argument, so we have a sample size here, that Bill Belichick stays at North Carolina for 5 years. I think Cole and I both agreed off the air that we think 5 years would be about the max he would be there anyway, because he's 72 years old. So he's there for 5 years. He puts somewhere in the range of 60 games under his belt. Where do you see the record coming out? Plus 500, under 500, or hovering right around 500?
No, I think, and again, Clemson guy here, he's in the ACC. I think year 1, 500 is great. But I think if he's there 5 years, I think years 2, 3, 4, and 5, Bill Belichick is 65 to 75% win percentage. And I think year 3, he's a 10 win guy. I do.
And Kevin, I guess that's what it goes back to. Diesel asked you a question. I'll ask you this because this is an important part of it. Do you think college players care more about the green, the dollar bill, or do you think they care about playing for Bill Belichick? At the end of the day, in this new era of college football, how much draw does Bill Belichick really have?
It's about the green. And I think North Carolina, their Nike connection, Michael Jordan, they can provide the name, image, likeness opportunities through that namesake, through Nike, Jordan. They can do that. So I think he gets good players, and North Carolina gets good players through Mac Brown, and and again, they played Clemson in the ACC title game with a not so great head coach a few years ago. So I think this makes North Carolina relevant in the short term, but I think in this all internet rumors, naming his son as the coach in waiting, that's a terrible idea. So. Again, I think it's, what does Bill Belichick have to prove on the NFL level? Nothing.
Right.
So this is just a challenge for him. And if he can keep his wife out of the dorms, his 28-year-old wife out of the dorms, he'll be in good shape.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, well, I think Bill needs to stay out of the dorms. That's the problem.
Well, that might be true, too.
That's the problem.
What a way to mic drop it.
He does bring up an interesting point there with regards to Jamie Chadwell. At what point is Jamie going to bleep or get off the pot and take that Power 5 job? I mean, Jamie he's career 119 and 61, which puts him right around 65-ish%. Just kind of trying to do the math off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Puts him right around 65%. This year has not been the strongest year at Liberty, 8-3 against the weakest strength of schedule in college football. And I mean, dead last. He was 39-22 at Coastal, victimized my team quite a bit. I don't like the guy, but I mean, you can't argue with 119 and 61.
Think about how crazy this sounds. What's about to come out of my mouth. Jamie Chadwell would be a better long-term hire for North Carolina than Bill Belichick. Think about that.
I agree.
But that just sounds crazy to say, right?
Well, yeah, because Jamie Chadwell at some point, he's going to be successful, right? He's going to be better than 500, that's for sure, because he's been better than 500 everywhere he's been, except for Delta State, because he was only there for one season.
I forget about that.
21-14 at North Greenville.
Was that before Delta? Oh, God.
That was after North Greenville.
I forgot about Delta State.
Yeah, North Greenville in 09, 10, and 11. Delta State in 12. He went 3-7 that year. And at Charleston Southern, 4 years, 35-14. In 5 years at Coastal, 39-22. And 2 seasons at Liberty, 21-4.
He worked his way up the ladder really impressively from North Greenville to where he is now.
But he stepped right back down from
Going
Coastal to Liberty. I don't understand the move. I mean, I know Liberty's got more money than anybody because they don't pay taxes.
Yeah. I think it was probably what's he making there? Do you know off the top of your head?
That's a good question.
I'm sorry, I put you on the spot there. I mean, I know it was a raise for him. I just think when you talk about the long term.
He's making $4 million. That's why he left.
Oh, yeah.
That's why he left Coastal.
Peace out.
He was probably all in with incentives, probably at most capping out at 1.5. Because my understanding is that most
Tim Beck's making $1 million.
Yep.
So we're talking about $2.5, $3 million.
Yeah, he quadrupled his paycheck.
Yeah.
And Liberty, those checks are going to clear.
Woo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
But so at what point, Cole, does a competitor in you say, you know what? I already lost it here. 21-4 against the worst schedule in college football twice. At what point is that not good enough? At what point do I want to try my hand at a Power 4 job? Because you got to believe they're calling.
It is. I guess the last thing I would say is on the Bill Belichick front, Diesel, it upsets me. I think I don't know this off the top of my head. He's somewhere between 13 or I have to look it up. Bill Belichick is not many games away, Diesel, from being the all-time leading winner, the winningest coach ever in the NFL.
Yeah.
I would like to go see him get that. As the head coach in the NFL, obviously, we heard, nobody wants him. I don't know if that's true or not, but he has 333 wins now. Don Shula has 328. So he needs 26 wins in the NFL as a head coach to become, or to tie 27 to become the all-time winningest coach. I'd like to see him go coach Cincinnati or Dallas.
So now you're talking about 3 seasons, and that's if you're stepping into a perfect situation.
Yeah.
Andy Reid gets sick, Bill Belichick steps right in, boom, you're gonna go get that. You're gonna go get those wins.
If that happens, that's gonna be weird, by the way.
When we come back, Cole, a challenge that I'm gonna lay the gauntlet to you to see if you think you're better and tougher and stronger than a little Chinese woman.
Oh, wow.
That's coming up next on the Fan Upstate. Oh, the Chinese have come up with a crazy new challenge that I genuinely believe you, as a red-blooded American male, could not complete.
Oh,
I don't believe you. I don't believe that you could do this.
but I love the Chinese.
A woman in China won 10,000 yuan. That's their currency.
What'd you say?
10,000 yuan.
Yuan.
Yeah, what'd you call me? It's approximately $1,400 by staying off her phone for 8 hours. And you're like, well, that doesn't seem that hard. I could probably do that. Like, just put it in the other room, sit down and watch a movie. Guess what? You can't do that.
Yeah.
Can't watch a movie. Can't read a book. Can't sleep.
Oh, you can't sleep?
No,
Okay.
You can't distract yourself in any way, shape, or form. 10 contestants were randomly selected to participate. They wore like wristbands, kind of like an Apple Watch kind of thing, to track their vital signs, and they were not allowed to show any form of anxiety whatsoever of being without technology for 8 hours. Only one contestant out of the 10, and they were randomly selected. Only one passed the test.
I think I could do it.
You think so?
Yeah, last year when I go to duck camp in Arkansas, shoot ducks.
Yeah.
I'll go 5-6 hours without it. And
I couldn't lay there for 8 hours wide awake, just laying there.
okay, and that's fair. See, I'm doing things outdoors. Cell service isn't good.
But you're distracting
I'm
yourself.
distracted myself. Yeah,
right.
You're right.
So, like, I would love to be out fishing for hours
Without
and
it.
not look at my phone. I
but
would
that
love
doesn't count.
to be snowboarding. Yeah, that doesn't count. You can't
Oh.
do that. And basically what they're trying to spotlight is that we have such a deep reliance on smartphones and technology.
No, we do.
that we start to get twitchy. Like, according to a study, researchers say that the average American, there's no way this is correct. The average American checks their phone 352 times a day.
I believe it.
So you're awake. See, here I am checking my phone. You're awake for 16 hours a day, roughly, right? 352 divided by 16 hours. That's checking your phone 22 times an hour.
And here's what we're going to find out if we can do it. What is your daily average screen time?
Daily average screen time.
We're going to say hours at the same time.
I know it sends me the update. Remind me how to find it.
So if you scroll down and just type it in, that's what I did. Just pull down on the screen and type in screen time. It's under settings, but I just typed it in, and it shows your daily average. And I'm down 39% from last week. I guess that's a good thing.
Screen time. Here we go.
All right, on the count of three, let's say it.
Daily average. 1, 2, 3.
7 hours and 30 minutes.
348.
Wow. I have way more.
And I'm down 9% from last week.
That's good.
Yeah.
That is you're
my goal every week is to see it say it's going down.
Now, here's the problem. Do you have TikTok?
No.
Okay, well, there's your probably
for
me, probably 4 hours a week. I mean, seriously,
Yeah.
I've spent an ungodly. People who have TikTok, it's like Facebook Reels or Instagram Reels. You just do this.
If you could give me my favorite movie trilogy, I would sit there and watch that all day without looking at my phone once.
That's a lot.
I could do it.
Yeah.
I could absolutely do it, but you can't distract yourself with books or movies or television or sleeping or anything. I mean, like, I watched a movie last night that I don't think I watched realistically more than like 25% of the movie. It's bad.
You watched it on your phone?
No.
Oh.
No, I watched it on TV. I watched it on my TV with my phone like this the whole time.
Yeah.
And I didn't actually, like, that's why we got to back it up and play the same episode
And
over
real
and
quick,
over and over again.
Before we run, real important on movies. The best, I'm not a big, I don't watch a lot of movies or TV shows. However, there is one out right now they claimed was better than Yellowstone. I never watched Yellowstone, but there's a new show out called Landman. Have you heard of it?
No.
It's on Paramount Plus. It's about the oil field.
Landman.
Yeah, it's about the oil fields in Texas.
I watch it.
It is amazing.
Really?
I mean,
Okay.
I'm doing this. I'm hooked. Madcraft says you watch Madcraft, watch Landman. I'm telling you, it's the best. Speaking of the best, we'll be back tomorrow at 3 to 7 p.m.
Man.
It's so good. It's so good. Chris Phillips, Kelly Ford, a huge show coming your way tomorrow. We'll see you then, Tolos.